remains the official opposition with 18.07%, followed by the ANC with 16.99%. Minoshni Pillay reports.
ANC Secretary in KwaZulu-Natal, Bheki Mtholo, has confirmed Kaunda's redeployment to the NCOP. The NCOP ensures that provincial interests are taken into account in national government. Mtholo says Kaunda's last day in his capacity as eThekwini mayor is Friday, June 14th. This also marks the first sitting of the provincial legislature in the new administration.
Constitutional Court Judge Derek Colopin says the struggle of the Rivonia trialists was not for personal gain but the betterment of the South African society. He delivered a keynote at the Palace of Justice in Pretoria to mark the 60th anniversary of the Rivonia trial. The Ahmed Kathrada Foundation organized the event. Colopin says it's important to pay tribute to all anti-apartheid activists.
The pain and the anguish of those who sat in this court is probably reflected in the crevices of this formidable building. And in many respects, we are required to do more than simply gather here from time to time. So yes, this is a historic occasion. Our journey as a nation has been a mixed journey. It's been a journey of oppression and a journey of liberation. It's been a journey that has seen humanity's, but it's also a journey that has witnessed humanity's retreat on several others.
Further field and finally clashes between police and anti-government protesters have continued into the night in the Argentine capital, Buenos Aires. Riot police forced crowds away from the Congress building, where a far-reaching economic reform bill was being discussed. Recapping the top story, the first sitting of the National Assembly will go ahead as scheduled tomorrow. This after the Constitutional Court refused to grant the Umkhonto weSizwe Party an interdict to stop the sitting. For SAFM News, I am Anne Musa.
A very good morning to you in your SFM Sports headlines. It's soccer action last night. Despite late pressure from Baroka FC, it was Tuks who held firm for a 1-0 draw in the PSL promotion playoff. And in tennis news, the French Open champions Carlos Alcaraz and Rafa Nadal to represent Spain in the 2024 Olympics. All these stories and more just before 6:30.
SAFM. Guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good morning. Already heavy coming into Pretoria along the mighty Mampani Highway. There's no traffic lights at Eskia and Pafali, and that traffic inbound from Shoshanguve arriving into the junction, already backing up towards Bremer Street and looking pretty heavy this morning. Watch for a stationary truck at Cliffdale on your way from Pietermaritzburg down to Durban. 2 lanes are currently closed, so south of Hammersdale. Just watch for slowing traffic. Roadworks free on the M4 this morning. That's good news. No disruption through Congella and below that run on the Southern Freeway into Durban, moving nicely. There is the closure of Brook Street at the top. That'll cause delays a little bit later this morning if you're on the M4. And Cape Town, heavy pressure out of Mitchell's Plain. There's roadworks, traffic restrictions on AZ Berman between Highlands Drive and the R300. And that route this morning busier than you might be expecting. I'm Rob Byrne. SAFM Sunrise starts now.
SAFM Sunrise. A vivid start to your day.
7 minutes after 6, good morning, welcome to SAFM Sunrise. I'm Stephen Grootes as well. Rob Byrne talking about a lot going on. There is so much going on in our politics at the moment and trying to work out how things are going to end tomorrow, how it's all kind of going to land. And I can't say to you at this moment that I know, and I'm concerned slightly that tomorrow morning, just hours ahead of the first sitting of the National Assembly, it will be absolutely the same. I won't be able to stand here, sit whatever it is, before you and say, I actually know what is going to happen. I think it's going to be quite difficult. Some big developments, though, in the last kind of 12 hours or so. First, the Inkatha Freedom Party holding a press conference. You'll hear from their leader, Velenkosini Hlabisa, a little later in the show. They've agreed to join the Government of National Unity, and this presumably means that they're certainly joining the ANC, and we expect that the DA will be a part of it. I don't have clarity from them yet on whether or not that is the case. Also clarity, I understand, from the IFP that they will nominate and vote for Tami Ntuli as Premier of KwaZulu-Natal. Now, this is really important. If the Umkhonto we Sizwe members do not arrive in Parliament tomorrow, the ANC needs to find 172 votes in the National Assembly to elect Cyril Ramaphosa as president for a second term. They currently have 159. The IFP is 17. If the IFP then gives those votes to the ANC and the MK members don't arrive, well then the ANC can probably safely elect Cyril Ramaphosa as leader. If the MK members do arrive, then Parliament would have 400 people, and the National Assembly would need 201, in which case the ANC probably would need some help from the Democratic Alliance. They've got 87 seats. The ANC, of course, 159. So this is some of the complication. Now, yesterday, Ivan Barnes, the leader of the National Freedom Party, came on the radio and he told you that he had been meeting with the IFP, the ANC and the DA to form some kind of government in KwaZulu-Natal. In KwaZulu-Natal, as things stand, MK and the EFF have 39 seats. The IFP, the ANC, the DA have 40. There are 80 seats there. Someone needs 41. The National Freedom Party has 1 seat. If the National Freedom Party goes with the IFP, ANC, DA, you get to 41. If they go with the EFF and MK, it's 40 and 40. And no, I don't think they toss a coin. I know they do that in local municipalities. I don't think they do that in the provinces. Ivan Barnes yesterday telling you that he had met with the IFP. He had met with other members of a sort of government of national unity. He had not met with MK. A lot's changed. Pictures emerging on social media of him meeting quite warmly with former President Jacob Zuma, who, as you know, is the leader of MK. But I also understand that he also met with Tommy Ntuli, who is the IFP's premier candidate in KwaZulu-Natal. What's going to happen? Well, I don't know. I can tell you some of what's going to happen, which is Mdu and Stanza, Melissa trying yesterday. They picked up the baton this morning and are trying Ivan Barnes, the leader of the National Freedom Party. The moment that he answers his phone, I mean, they might say good morning or they might just put him straight on the radio. Either way, it'll be quick. We'll try and find out for you what's going to happen. We still don't know, and there are a couple of big things that we don't know. We don't know if the DA will actually join this or not. My instinct suggests that they might because of some of the sort of tone and the conversations and the comments, but I can't say for sure that they will. And presumably what happens in KZN affects what happens in National and affects what happens in Gauteng. The ANC's National Executive Committee, obviously the ANC will be the sort of quietest of the parties at the moment, not doing any interviews as far as I know. Their NEC is meeting tonight. Their caucus is meeting, their National Assembly caucus is meeting after that. So they have a lot to decide before tomorrow. Now then, you may sit there and ask, and you heard in the news bulletin the result of this with Anne, what was the result of the Constitutional Court application by Umkhonto we Sizwe? Well, MK lost. The Constitutional Court saying, actually, we're not going to hear this application to stop the National Assembly from meeting tomorrow. And one of the reasons is that MK simply did not give any facts to support their claim that the results of the election were manipulated. And we go back to this, don't we? It's all about the facts. If you have evidence, as I said to Ntlamulo Ndlela last week, their spokesperson, present the facts. Until you do, we can't really base anything on anything. There's nothing to base it on. So that's an important story. Also, MK on their WhatsApp group this morning saying that Sikhlin Gubani, who you heard on your radio 2 weeks ago, quite an important interview that's turned out to be, I think, in which he said that all of the decisions were made by Jacob Zuma. He is now, according to MK's media statement, said he wants to go to Parliament. He needs to plan for that. So he is leaving the position of Interim Secretary General and will be replaced by Arthur Zwane. But this raises another question. So if Sikhlin Gubani is going to Parliament, does that mean that the MK members will be there tomorrow or not? I don't know. I would watch, though. I would listen tomorrow to Kathy when we find out. But it would seem that that may be the case. Now, all of this seems to also be having some kind of impact in local government. And it would be surprising if there wasn't an impact. But the mayor of eThekwini, Xolisi Kaunda, is being, well, I think most of us would say recalled. The ANC says redeployed. He will no longer be the mayor. He'll now go to the National Council of Provinces. We will try and speak. In fact, we will speak to Becky Mtolo, who's the provincial secretary of the ANC in KwaZulu-Natal, in about an hour from now, and ask him why. And ask him also, is it because Kaunda did a bad job? If it's not because he did a bad job, are you then happy with the situation in eThekwini? So many people in eThekwini have told us over the last year that they're very unhappy with the situation there. But that's not all, because in Ekurhuleni, in Gauteng, and I think there will be consequences for this decision, the mayor there Nkosindipendile Kakaza, he's with the ANC, has removed Nkululeko Dunga as the member of the member of the Mayoral Committee for Finance. Nkululeko Dunga is from the EFF. So, in other words, an ANC mayor has removed an EFF person who's in charge of finance, and Dunga is also the leader of the EFF in Gauteng. So there are developments there, and I don't know what that is going to mean. I don't know why it's happened now. Again, we will try Mayor Kakaza and ask if we can speak to him this morning to find out a little bit more about it. The one phrase that I've seen associated with that is that the mayor says this was due to an unforeseen misalignment. Let me just say, if you're a mayor, you and your finance boss kind of need to be aligned, but an unforeseen misalignment, I don't know what that means. The other big story, just to mention, the Health Minister, Dr. Joe Pagla, yesterday talking about Mpox. We've had one death from this disease, and it's particularly people who engage in close personal contact. As the Minister put it yesterday, often they find that there are cases in men who have sex with men, and in particular, if you are immunosuppressed. In our context, that probably means if you're living with HIV and you have a low CD4 count, you might be vulnerable to this disease. So please take care of yourself with this. But Mpox, close personal contact, really is what leads to it spreading. There is an outbreak around the world, and government watching that very closely. All right, what do you think is going to happen? What do you believe should happen tomorrow? 086 000 2032, SMS 41391. You tweet us FM Radio and at Stephen Grootes. You send your WhatsApp voice notes on 061 104 107. Good morning. I'd like to hear from your crystal ball this morning. It's 6:15.
The Daily News Diary on SAFM.
Talking of crystal balls, and good morning.
Good morning, Stephen.
Meeting, engagement, negotiation, announcement, press conference. Some of the words we might hear from you?
Oh, definitely. And I think the big one, definitely, the announcement by the ANC that's expected later today. The NEC is meeting, so expecting the ANC to announce the outcome of its consultations, of its proposal to form the government of national unity. All important one.
Yeah, and I mean, I think it's only really tomorrow morning. I think only with the election of the president, which will probably be Friday afternoon, tomorrow afternoon, I suspect. You know, the morning will be the swearing in. And then we'll kind of know where we are.
We are. So the picture getting a bit clearer there for us. In our diary today, the Constitutional Court, we know, has rejected the application by the Umkhonto weSizwe Party to halt tomorrow's first sitting of the National Assembly. And today, the Secretary to Parliament, Xolile George, will be holding a media briefing that's on the preparations to host the first sittings of the two houses of Parliament, the National Assembly and the National Council of Provinces, taking place tomorrow and on Saturday. The DA expected to communicate the nature of its engagements with the ANC and other parties on its outcome of the Government of National Unity talks. That's expected today. We also have reaction by political parties. That's on the removal of the eThekwini Mayor Mxolisi Kahunda on action essay saying that in KwaZulu-Natal, saying that they are not surprised at all by this move. And Al-Jama is also expected to have talks today with the UDM, the ATM, MK, EFF and the PAC. That's on how to map the way forward. In courts today, the trial of husband and wife Sibusiso and Lerato Mahlangu, it's expected to continue in the High Court in Pretoria. A pathologist has told the court that Sibusiso Sitebe, that's the man allegedly killed by the couple, was still alive at the time that he was torched, and the Shoshanguve couple is on trial for the 2022 murder of Sitebe, who was Lerato's former boyfriend as well as the father of a child. The Senzo Mehiwa murder trial is expected to continue in the High Court in Pretoria with the testimony of the Vodacom forensic supervisor, and the Gauteng Provincial Commissioner, Lieutenant General Tomi Mtombeni, is expected today to reflect on what has been achieved since he was appointed in office as the Provincial Commissioner. So expected to speak on the successes as well as also to give progress on prominent cases. And just lastly, Stephen, the Department of Health will today release the findings of the 2021 Global Adult Tobacco Survey, an essay report which aims to determine the use and burden of tobacco in the country. We know that South Africa has a huge burden of tobacco use as well as exposure to secondhand smoke.
Yeah, a lot going on there. And Musa, thank you. We'll be listening on the radio. A lot more to come today, 18 minutes after 6.
First in the morning, SAFM Sunrise with Stephen Grootes.
Let's have a look at your weather around the country this morning. Tshwane fine, a low of 3, a high of 23. Johannesburg fine, 1 and 21. Vereeniging fine, 0 and 20. Bombela fine, 8 and 20. Polokwane fine, 4 and 22. Mahakeng fine, 2 and 22. Vryburg fine, 3 and 23. Mangaung fine, 0 and 20. Kimberley fine, 1 and 21. Uppington fine, 4 and 25. Cape Town cloudy, morning fog becoming fine from the afternoon, a light and variable wind, 13 and 21. George fine, a light and variable wind, 10 and 20. Gqeberha fine, a light westerly wind, 11 and 20. East London fine, a light northwesterly wind, 13 and 21. eThekwini partly cloudy, a moderate southwesterly wind, 13 and 23. Richards Bay partly cloudy, a moderate to fresh southwesterly wind, 17 and 25. And Pietermaritzburg partly cloudy, morning fog patches, 8 and 23.
Are you ready to empower yourself with an accredited tertiary qualification? Stadio Higher Education's distance learning programs will set you up for success. Whether you're balancing work and family or you're a school leaver who must work to support yourself and your studies, Stadio offers access to high-quality, affordable qualifications in law, teacher education, commerce, admin and management, policing, and more. Mid-year applications are now open. Visit stadio.ac.za and register today. Stadio, a new vision in higher education.
Father's Day is just around the corner, and it's the perfect time to show Dad how much you care. With the widest range of gifts from Discount Pharmacies. Treat him with state-of-the-art gadgets like wireless audio devices so he can dance to his favorite songs. And specialized electrical grooming products to maintain a clean look. Spoil him for choice with a Discount gift card. Father's Day specials now on until 16 June. Only at Discount Pharmacies. Better health starts here.
The clock is winding down and the world's most renowned games are drawing near. With a wide variety of delightful action such as basketball, badminton, cycling, hockey, handball and volleyball. It is less than 50 days to the Olympics. The world's top athletes are all chasing an Olympic medal. Hashtag the global battle of great athletes. Experience the Olympic Games Paris 2024 from Friday 26 July until Sunday 11 August. Live on SABC TV channels and SABC radio stations. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. SABC Sport, the official broadcaster of the Olympic Games Paris 2024. For the love of the game.
Worldview Update, bringing you closer to international news.
21 minutes after 6, good morning. In Cuba, the Russian Navy has sent a fleet of ships, including a nuclear-powered submarine, on a visit that appears aimed at strengthening the relationships between the two countries. They've been close to each other for many, many years. As you know, Russia, or I suppose the Soviet Union then, strongly supported Cuba during the Cold War. At one point, Cuba even had Russian ballistic missiles on its soil, which created the Cuban Missile Crisis with the United States in 1962. Now it appears this is the biggest show of force or military cooperation, really, that Russia has sent to Cuba in many, many years. Professor Abel Eerstehuizen is a professor of strategy at the Faculty of Military Science at the University of Stellenbosch. Professor Eerstehuizen, good morning.
Good morning, Stephen.
Russia and Cuba, or the Soviet Union and Cuba, close during the Cold War. Both countries have changed significantly since then, but they're obviously very close.
Yeah, I think, there's a couple of dimensions that one should highlight here. I think the first very important dimension, and you've used the word show of force, I think Russia is doing this as a show of force to say, listen, we still have this capability and we can do this force projection. So that's definitely a very important factor that's featuring in what Russia is doing here. There's obviously a historical dimension here. Putin has this grandiose ideas of the Soviet Union and, what it was and recreating what was. And I think there's an important historical dimension here that one should consider the relationship between Cuba and Russia. And then thirdly, I think there's an important strategic message in what they are doing, telling the United States that, listen, we can play under your nose in the same way that you are doing at present by projecting force into Europe and sitting on our borders at the moment. I think there's a strong strategic message in what they are doing as well. A bit of a threatening message to the United States as well.
I mean, it's because Cuba is literally around the corner. What's it, sort of 80 miles away or so? I mean, very, very close to the United States.
Yeah, well, Guantanamo Bay is on Cuba itself, and it's part of the United States, so it's literally in the U.S. territorial waters. There's no doubt that perhaps an irritating factor, if I can put it like that, that there is an irritating factor at play here as well. There's a number of messages that Putin is sending here. But I mean, the fact that the United States is not responding in a comprehensive way, they're not making a big issue of this, is also telling a message, telling us that they don't consider, Putin that much of a threat anymore. They're actually downplaying it. And then it in itself is, I think, a very important message from the United States itself.
There are other things around all of this. I mean, military exercises are often important. We've engaged in military exercises, our Navy, I think, with the United States, other countries, Russia as well. It basically, I mean, it sends all sorts of signals, doesn't it? I mean, there are all sorts of purposes that are served when countries do this, when they have their military sort of practicing together.
Obviously, I mean, there's an important message underlying this, often referred to as military diplomacy at play when you navies exercise together. And there is a lot of military diplomacy here. And Cuba has never been a real naval power, so the idea of an exercise to improve the capabilities and the abilities of the Cuban Navy is not really an issue here. But the important factor, I think, here is the idea of military diplomacy. And there's no doubt that Russia has a diplomatic intention here, and that it is sending its navy for purposes of diplomacy. But as a military exercise per se, I have my doubts. The Cuban Navy have never been a real factor as a military entity. So it's more about military diplomacy here.
Professor Abel Esterhuizer, thank you very much indeed. Professor of Strategy in the Faculty of Military Science at the University of Stellenbosch. Just interesting to see what different people around the world are doing in this kind of area. Lots to come. You're with SFM coming up now to 27 minutes after 6.
This is SAFM Sport with Zai Khan.
Zai, good morning.
Good morning.
Bit of a promotion playoff yesterday, Baroka and Tuks.
Yeah, it was a nail-biter. Tuks Baroka went head-to-head and ended with a 1-1 draw drama till the last minute there. Now, despite Baroka piling the pressure in stoppage time, Tuks stood firm to hold the home side and move to 4 points, while Baroka remained rooted at the bottom with just 2 points. Elsewhere, fans at Euro 2024 will be given more detailed information on video assistant refereeing decisions than before. The head of UEFA's refereeing committee, Roberto Rossetti, said screens at stadiums across Germany will provide technical explanations of VAR calls in order to improve spectator understanding. One of the various criticisms of VAR technology since its widespread introduction has been the difficulty match-going fans have in understanding why certain decisions are made. Now, at the 2023 Women's World Cup, officials announced decisions to spectators verbally before restarting play. In the meantime, Germany's late World Cup winning captain and coach Franz Beckenbauer will be honoured by UEFA at the Euro 2024 opening ceremony at the Munich Football Arena. Beckenbauer, one of the country's greatest players, captained West Germany to a European Championship triumph in 1972 and a World Cup success in 1974 before winning the World Cup again as manager in 1990. He passed away in January, aged 78 years old. Cricket action, and Surya Kumar Yadav hit an unbeaten half-century, and left-arm seamer Arshdeep Singh claimed a career best of 4 for 9 as India defeated the United States by 7 wickets to reach the T20 World Cup second round yesterday, chasing 111 to win the Group A clash. India secured a third win in 3 games for Rohit Sharma's team with 10 balls to spare. Now, despite the defeat, the United States are still well placed to join India in the Super 8s as they have 4 points, while Pakistan and Canada are on 2 points. Golf now in a significant move for the future of professional golf. USGA CEO Mike Wan announced that the organization is considering granting exemptions to live golf players for future US Opens. Speaking ahead of the week's tournament at Pinehurst, Wan emphasized the inclusive nature of the US Open.
There is no out-of-bounds stakes on our field criteria. In other words, this major, probably different than some others, you can get in. It's not a closed field. It doesn't require a committee or an invitation. If you want to play in this field, you got an opportunity to play in this field, and we're proud of that. I would say to you, to your specific question, John and I have both talked about it, and we're definitely going to talk about it in this off-season on whether or not there needs to be a path to somebody or somebodies that are performing really well on live that could get a chance to play in it that way. I think we are serious about that.
And finally, tennis. The French Open champions Carlos Alcaraz and Rafael Nadal have been named in the Spain team for the 2024 Olympic Games. World number 2 Alcaraz last weekend won his first Roland Garros title on the clay in Paris, where the Olympic tournament will take place from the 27th of July to the 4th of August. Nadal boasts 22 Grand Slam victories, including a record 14 French Open titles, but only returned to competition last April after missing the best part of 16 months through injury, and is currently ranked 264 in the world. That's a wrap of your sport on Sunrise. More top of the hour. I'm Zai Khan.
Zai, thanks very much indeed. Who will Mdu and Stanza get for the next 10 minutes? Will it be the National Freedom Party? Will it be Ivan Barnes, Rise Mzansi, the Patriotic Alliance? Could it be the Mayor of Ekurhuleni? Stick around. We'll find out together. Good morning at 6:30.
Good morning. In the headlines, financial services provider Old Mutual Investments says trade unions should support a government that will ensure the protection of the workers' pensions and the creation of a conducive business environment. This as the SACP rejects the possibility of a government that would include the DA. The first sitting of the National Assembly will go ahead as scheduled tomorrow. This after the Constitutional Court refused to grant the Umkhonto weSizwe Party an interdict to stop the sitting. And Argentine lawmakers have voted to approve in general a controversial draft of economic reforms. I'll have details on these and other stories at 7.
SAFM. Guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
No traffic lights this morning into Pretoria on the R80, the Mopani Highway at Eskia and Petlali. There is already quite a heavy queue building up on that section inbound, arriving from Shoshanguve. Crash on Joburg's N3 at London Road. Traffic already parking back through to Marlborough Drive. And just staying in that area, the Marlborough Gardens, Marlborough North, Alex, and Vasco da Gama regions getting a dose of load reduction from the city of Joburg over the next couple of hours until 8 a.m. So there'll be 1 or 2 extra traffic lights out and a bit of localised congestion in the area. The N3, stationary truck at Cliffdale on your way to Durban, that's been cleared. That's good news. No roadworks at Umbulo or Congella this morning on the Southern Freeway, so that's the result as well. Cape Town really battling to get out of Mitchell's Plain this morning on AZ Berman. Roadworks there between Highlands Drive and the R300. It's really heavy this morning, but yesterday we saw a day of just major disruption going in and out of Mitchell's Plain. So if you use AZ Berman or you come off the R300 and turn onto AZ Berman at the stock exit, expect some delays. Also 35th Avenue queuing at Bishop Lavis. That's a queue that extends back onto the Stellenbosch Arterial Road. That's quite a slow one. And blasting day today down in the Eastern Cape, the M2 between Makanda and Fish River Pass closed from 3 p.m. until 5 p.m. 2-hour closure a little bit later this afternoon. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
The business update on SAFM.
Ntaleng, good morning. How are you doing?
Morning, Stephen. I'm well, thanks, and I hope you're good.
All good. How are the markets?
Well, markets have remained in mixed territory, with Wall Street stocks digesting some of the news flow from yesterday. We saw the S&P 500 jumping to a record and closing above 5,400 for the first time after the Fed's latest policy announcement, and as May's inflation data pointed to easing price pressures. Over in Asia, a similar trend playing out on that front. Some of the gains, however, were limited after the Fed slashed its outlook for interest rate cuts. Attention in Asia has now shifted to Japan, where policymakers will make their next move tomorrow. Here on home ground, the JSE making a comeback, closing yesterday in the green after 2 consecutive days of losses. The All Share ended the day 1.28% higher. The local unit also making gains as the dollar eased. It's currently trading at 18.40 to the dollar.
And then the Fed leaving interest rates unchanged again.
No surprise here, Stephen. Powell and his team of policymakers standing pat on rates yet again, and this despite the progress made on the inflation front, where we've seen consumer prices steadily easing. However, the Fed remains stern in its fight to tame inflation and get it to its target of 2%. Interestingly, the central bank has now pushed out the start of rate cuts to perhaps as late as December, with officials projecting only a single quarter percentage point reduction for the year amid rising estimates for what it will take to keep inflation in check. This is from estimates of a rate cut in September. Now, while rate cuts are seen as probably starting later and at a slower pace this year than investors have initially anticipated, the Fed's policy rate is seen falling fast next year, with reductions of a full percentage point in both 2025 and 2026. Now, this could hit South Africans hard, as economists only expect the SARB to cut rates when the Fed starts easing. And seeing that US policymakers could only start cutting in December, the SARB might only start reducing rates next year.
And SPAR moving closer to selling its Polish business.
That's right, Stephen. Now, this has been a unit that has been underperforming and eating into SPAR's earnings for many years. SPAR has not revealed the buyer, but says the interested party has expressed its commitment to continue operating the SPAR brand in Poland. And if the negotiations are concluded successfully, this might have a material effect on the price of the company's shares. Now, the announcement comes alongside its half-year earnings, where it reported a 7.6% decline in earnings. This was mainly due to macroeconomic conditions, including inflationary cost pressures and prolonged higher interest rates, as well as high costs and issues with the rollout of its IT systems. Now, despite the decline in profit, markets welcomed the report, with SPAR shares closing just over 11% higher in yesterday's close.
Intal Lachela, thank you very much indeed. Back, of course, in an hour. More business news through the day here on SAFM.
Conversations that you connect with and react to. SAFM.
There's sponsoring a news feature, then there's helping your clients make the news. Search Standard Bank Business and Commercial Banking to see how far they can take your business.
Africa Update on SAFM Sunrise, a continental overview of current African affairs.
Ras Advocate Sipho Mantula, good morning.
Steve, a refreshing morning, Jumbo Africa, to the listeners.
In Malawi, the government there, the former Vice President Solus Chilima, he'll get a state funeral after that plane crash.
Stephen, President Lazarus Chakwera announced that there will be 21 days of national mourning, and as well as the flags will fly half staff across the Southern African nation during this period of mourning. Now, there will be a state funeral being organized, Stephen. There's an interministerial committee that will oversee the preparation for Chilima's state funeral. And remember, Stephen, we're talking of 9 people who were on board, but it appears there were 10 people. That includes 6 passengers of his staff and the 3 military crew members, as well as Shanila Zimbiri, the former wife of President Baliki Mulusi. Interestingly, the Zambian Air Force helicopter also assisted Malawi, Stephen, to bring the bodies of of Chilima and the other 9 passengers back to Lilongwe yesterday.
And then in Madagascar, in Antananarivo, their governing party fell short of their parliamentary majority.
Andra Rogelina's party, Tanora Malagasy Vonona, only managed to get 80 seats out of 163. Independent candidates got 52 seats, 125 going to the opposition. The Electoral Commission of Madagascar saying that the voter turnout was just over 48%. Despite that, Mark Ravalomanana accused the ruling party of violations and fraud. That shows, Stephen, that power has moved out from Rajolina in parliament. It will be difficult for him now because of 80 seats out of 163. These are the new challenges that are facing the island of Madagascar and Antananarivo.
I mean, in Kenya, there's a bit of a fight between the former President Uhuru Kenyatta and the current President William Ruto. What's it telling us?
Stephen, it will always be around the pegs of the former president, raising the issues around getting more money in terms of him buying cars, getting office space, because of his demanding international and continental work. Now, Uhuru Kenyatta is saying that he's been owed some money. He said for 2 years he's been owed 145 million. He has not been given his money as a former president in terms of his cars, as I said, Stephen, and the issues of his office space. And now the government of Kenya has been mum on it. William Ruto has not been engaging Kenyatta on all these complaints that is coming from the former president. It is all about cars, Stephen, Toyota Land Cruisers, your Mercedes-Benz, your Range Rovers. I don't think it is very important for Uhuru Kenyatta to be lamenting on those, Stephen. Considering how Kenya went through the floods now, Kenya is still also having challenges with IMF and World Bank, but it appears he's using that former president like Arap Moi Kibaki. They were given all those perks, including the numbers of cars that they have as former presidents.
And then in Senegal, the president there, President Faye, he says that profits from the sale of oil and gas will be well managed.
Remember, it was his manifesto, one of his manifesto issues, Stephen, that they will definitely look at the issues of the equal sharing of the gas, the oil that is coming from Senegal. And now this week, what has happened is that the historic deep water project come up with that 110,000 barrels of oil per day. Now he says that in generating billions of dollars for Senegal and boosting the economy, it will benefit everyone in Senegal. Faye have said it there before, Stephen, and say he will create what he calls the intergeneration fund that will benefit the generation to come even after them. So the oil and the gas contracts in Senegal, it seems between Osman Sonko and Faye, they are now under control, Stephen, and they are managed very well because they will benefit the people of Senegal, not the elite and few family members.
And then you're taking us back, 13th of June, 1976.
Stephen, we are doing countdown for June 16, normally where we do. 48 years ago, there was a meeting at the Naledi High School branch of the South African student movement where it was attended by a representative of all Soweto high schools. That's where, Stephen, it was also decided that the protest will be held on 16 June against the use of Afrikaans as a medium of education in black schools. It was an important meeting, Stephen, because the Soweto Student Representative Council and the Action Committee, those were the people. And remember, people like Seti Mashinini, Khozo, Satolo, they were the ones who were ahead of this June 16 struggle that happened in 1976. That is 48 years ago, Stephen. We know on Sunday it will be that national holiday of June 16. Asante Sana SG, as was leading the conversation, SAFM observing the Youth Month.
Ras Advocate Sipho Montula, thank you very much indeed. Back again tomorrow. There's listening to the news, then there's making the news. Grow your business into the next big thing with Standard Bank Business and Commercial Banking.
When humans invented the wheel, we thought that getting things from A to B would stop there. But it didn't. Soon after, horses drew carts to deliver goods. And that could have been it. But it wasn't. Because the goods had to move quicker. So we invented cars and went from hooves to horsepower on highways. Then the goods got heavier. So we built tankers to ship the cargo across the sea. And then we needed a solution that was cost-effective. So we built trains to transport the cargo. Then we wanted to receive the goods the following business day, so we built planes. But then we wanted a smaller and faster aircraft, so we invented drones. And it won't stop there. Because with the right mindset, there's possible. Then there's more. Search Standard Bank Business and Commercial Banking to see how far we can take your business. Standard Bank is an authorized financial services and registered credit provider.
Call us on 086 000 2032.
That's the number. Lots to talk about this morning. I don't know what's going to happen in KwaZulu-Natal tomorrow. I don't know what's going to happen in the National Assembly tomorrow. We are expected to have a president tomorrow, a new president. Well, the same president, but a new president. Ninja on the line from eThekwini. You've been watching all of this. How do you feel about it all?
Well, let me tell you, it's one word, FARCE, fast. Everything is faster Now, before I make my point, Stephen, I'd like all these MPs to go live in shacks for a week and they'll find out the truth. Now, the point I want to make, no party gained any majority. Now, the fact that there's no majority, an interim executive council should have been put in place with the Chief Justice to see this through. Not fast-tracking. This is a watershed moment in South African politics. People want to change. There's no change. They go down the same route. They all use rhetoric upon rhetoric, like the plywood put together. They do nothing, Stephen. The place where I live, people are looking for food in bins.
Yeah.
They're collecting tin cans and walking 5 miles to get some money, collecting scraps. I mean, that wasn't here pre-94. Potholes. I touched up 3 potholes in front of my place. You see, I take care of the place across the road. I've got a beautiful flower garden. And I do that 7 days a week. And, these MPs, they're caught up in a financial trap.
Yeah.
And they're creaming it all the time. They're getting all these millions, Stephen, pensions. They're sitting on a cushion. The people are suffering at large. They haven't put the infrastructure for a start around the country. How can you run a country without proper infrastructure? It's not right and proper, That's all I want to say, Stephen.
No, Ninja, I can hear your frustration. I'm sure you're not the only one on the line from eThekwini. Absolutely. 16 minutes to 7.
Hello, Your Choice Hotline.
Hi, I need you to help me make a choice.
Well, with Ford, you get to make your own choices. Like on brand new Ford Ranger XL, XLT or Wildtrak Supercabs from only $7,999 per month with no deposit needed. There's a flexible deal for every Supercab at your nearest Ford dealership today. Your Ford, your choice. T&Cs apply.
Which is the best way to reach success? Is it best to go alone so you can go fast? Or for many to go together so they can go far? What if you need to go fast and far? At RMB, we believe the best way to success doesn't make you choose when both are possible. When you need a thoughtful solution for financial complexity, there are only 3 letters you need to know. RMB, a division of First Rand Bank Limited, an authorized FSP and registered credit provider.
Channel your inner traveler on Top Travel this Saturday night at 8:30 on S3 as we scuba dive the kelp forests off the Cape Peninsula and kayak with the local penguins. Book into the beachfront suites of any couple's dream, take flight from Signal Hill, land just in time for lunch at Chef's Warehouse, and enjoy the classic Cape Town experience. That's Top Travel this Saturday night at 8:30. Repeat Sunday at 1 p.m. on S3.
SAFM. Prime time all day long.
7:15. Good morning. You know the number 086 000 2032. So, the Inkatha Freedom Party says it will join a government of national unity. The DA is still holding meetings, hasn't yet clearly said what it will do. The ANC's National Executive Committee is due to meet this evening. All of this ahead of tomorrow's sitting of the National Assembly. It has to meet. It has to elect a president. At the moment, according to my maths, I'm not a mathematician, but at the moment, if all of the MPs are in the House, all 400 of them, the ANC needs 201 votes to elect a president. It currently has 159 seats. If Umkhonto we Sizwe MPs boycott the sitting, they've got 58 seats. The ANC will need 172 seats to form a majority tomorrow. In other words, in that situation, the IFP has enough seats to help the ANC. But if MK arrives tomorrow, the ANC will probably need the DA. Professor P.S. Reddy is a public governance expert at the University of KwaZulu-Natal's Graduate School of Business and Leadership. Professor Reddy, good morning to you. It's hard to know how all of this is going to end up. How worried do we need to be, in fact, that people will not have agreed on a government by tomorrow morning?
Good morning to you and listeners. I know Friday 14th of June has been given as the deadline for setting in motion the basic structures of the new government, nationally and provincially. It seems we are very far away from finalizing the process. That is the election of the Speaker, Deputy Speaker, and the President, and of course, the requisite provincial government structures. The political coalitions have not been finalized nationally and provincially, even though even though it's Thursday today. But I think there has been some positive developments. For example, in KwaZulu-Natal, the IFP has indicated or issued a statement indicating that it will constitute part of the government of national unity, and provincially in KZN, it will work with the ANC, the DA and the NFP, and will form a government. The IFP is also prepared to join a provincial government of national unity in Gauteng. That is a positive development, as the party has put the interests of the country first. The party has also considerable experience in provincial government and development, having participated in provincial governance in 1994 and 1999. I think thus far we're making reasonable progress. For example, if you're looking at some of the other countries internationally, it took Spain about 4 months to create the coalition, Poland about 6 weeks, Germany about 3, and Finland about 12. So I think we're doing reasonably well. And I'm hopeful that things will pan out tomorrow.
So, I mean, Professor, there is the other option where people could vote in a president and then use the next few days to work out a government. And that's probably quite sensible. But that could mean that this could play out. So the DA could, for example, find itself voting in favour of Cyril Ramaphosa. He gets elected president. And then, because there's some other fight or dispute, decide not to be a part of his government. I mean, that would be a big political problem, surely.
Yeah, but I think at the end of the day, common sense will prevail. You know, South Africans are very, very resilient. So I think, look, it's going to take a bit of time, but I think we will eventually get our government. And the government has got some serious priorities which it has to attend to.
If you look at KZN, right, we understand that many people who were in the ANC in KwaZulu-Natal support former President Jacob Zuma. And so they vote in a secret ballot for the premier election. So I can't tell you what's going to happen in KwaZulu-Natal, but we could end up with a situation where it's 40 on one side, it's the IFP, the ANC, the DA, they have 40, and that if the ANC, if MK, the EFF and the NFP vote together, they also have 40. And it seems to me what's a likely possibility in KwaZulu-Natal tomorrow is that, in fact, the provincial judge president who chairs the meeting either decides they can't hold an election for whatever reason, or they can't elect a premier because they end up with 40 on either side. And I think that would probably mean that the sitting would be postponed for a week. Is that a possibility?
Look, that is a possibility, but as I said, you know, common sense will prevail. I mean, if you're looking at the statement issued by the IFP yesterday, even if you're looking at, I think the ANC is going to have a meeting at about 4:30 today, and I think it might confirm some of the arrangements. So as I said, common sense will prevail, and we are hopeful. And I think people realize that, look, we need to move ahead as a country. There's certain development priorities that have got to be addressed. And the people of the country have spoken. They said we want parties to work together. So I think common sense will prevail.
Professor P.S. Reddy, thank you. Public governance expert at the University of KwaZulu-Natal. Your views, 086 000 2032, 9 minutes to 7.
SAFM. Guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Crash on Joburg Z3 south at London Road in Alex. 2 lanes are closed and there's a very heavy, very early morning backlog, early peak hour backlog into that. If you're swinging through the Buccleuch interchange off the N1 Midrand or the N1 from Sunninghill, you get through Buccleuch down the N3. It's not too far down the road before you get stuck in some heavy traffic. And if you are on your way to the airport, you might want to just bypass that and take some alternative routes and keep yourself moving. R59 coming up to Michelle Avenue, having left the Vaal area. That's quite busy this morning. Durban, there's some pressure on the N2 North up towards the Gateway. We saw this route being just jammed all day yesterday, so perhaps there's an additional lane restriction there between Kwamashu and Gateway. But again, if you're on your way to the airport, that means 2 queues. The first one between the M7 and Mgena Road through the roadworks, and then into that secondary queue between Kwamashu and Gateway, which is, again, a heavy queue for this time of the morning. Cape Town, no traffic lights. Top of the airport, Robert Sobukwe, 35th Avenue, Stellenbosch Arterial. All approaches into that junction are quite heavily backed up, and the heavy traffic Coming out of Mitchell's Plain, roadworks on AZ Berman between Highlands Drive and the R300 causing big delays heading up towards the highway and badly backing up Highlands Drive into AZ Berman. Both sides very slow around that junction. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
Am I left or right-brained? I'm leaning right. Right? However, I do have some left-brain tendencies. Perhaps I'm left-brained with right-brain tendencies. Am I overthinking this? I don't want to be caught underthinking it. Or maybe I'm overthinking about underthinking the overthinking. Which am I?
At RMB, the simple answer is both. When you need a thoughtful solution for financial complexity that doesn't make you choose, there are only 3 letters you need to know. RMB, a division of First Rand Bank Limited, an authorized FSP and registered credit provider.
The Trilidor Ultimate Big Blue Sale is now on. Get amazing discounts on the best security South Africans trust. With over 50 franchises across the country, you can always find a security expert near you. So call 0861 Trilidor or visit trilidor.co.za today. Terms and conditions apply.
Channel your inner traveler on Top Travel this Saturday night at 8:30 on S3 as we scuba dive the kelp forests off the Cape Peninsula and kayak with the local penguins. Book into the beachfront suites of any couple's dream, take flight from Signal Hill, land just in time for lunch at Chef's Warehouse, and enjoy the classic Cape Town experience. That's Top Travel this Saturday night at 8:30. Repeat Sunday at 1 p.m. on S3.
Call us on 086 000 2032.
That's the number. Mighty Man on the line from Tswane. Mighty Man, I don't think we've spoken before. Welcome. Your view on coalitions? Mighty Man, good morning. Are you there? All right, you're described as Mighty Man there. Unfortunately not available for us, but you know the number, of course, on 086 000 2032. And the situation in KwaZulu-Natal is so complex at the moment that I really can't tell you what is going to happen. I can just as a sort of general comment make the point that I think in most places sort of instability or unpredictability, if I can call that, is almost always a bad thing. And so, you know, when you have this moment, maybe the one positive about the limitation, the deadline imposed by the Constitution is that you don't actually have this uncertainty for long. Maybe. Hard to kind of know. Let's see. Mighty Man back with us. Now, Mighty Man, there you are. Good morning. Coalitions.
Yes, good morning. SG, good morning to the listeners.
Go for it.
I like what Prof was saying. He used this word number of times, common sense.
Yeah.
Now, I'm actually saying to the parties, it's high time, SG, that we expect the leaders of these political parties just to apply a common sense principle. I mean, if you look at the mess that we are in this country, everything is just worse. Let's just for the first time apply common sense and appoint or elect leaders that will be able to drive this country forward. I mean, everything is it's just bad. If you look at the corruption itself, it's still very rampant. Even more than the way it were in the previous administration. 500 billion in few weeks, but the media is not reporting that. Instead, we talk about the market and so on. So I'm saying to the leaders, just for the first time, I mean, I was listening to the interview of the Public Service Commissioner, if I'm not mistaken, where he was talking about senior managers in government departments that are not qualified to do the job. And where do they learn these things from? They learned it from government leaders, cabinet ministers that are not even closer to be doing their job. How do you get someone who has even run a sponsor job to be part of the Ministry of Small Business if you think small business development can be one of the instruments of economic development? He knows nothing about just running a business, but you make him at that level where he must be able to contribute. She or he must be able to contribute in terms of the policies of the country. So I'm saying common sense principle, let it apply. Let's just get people that will drive this country forward, not on the basis of numbers of votes that they got and so on, and change this country.
All right, Mighty Man in Tswane, thank you. A lot of passion. In a way, I think you agree with Ninja. Joey on the line from Springs. Hi.
Good morning, John. How are you?
I'm well. Go for it.
Right, then. Yeah, listen, quickly, I think the impasse here, it's got nothing to do with what needs to be done. I think it's much of ego from all these individual parties, because none of these people, my attending, has got a majority to come and want to implement their individual mandate in it. So it tells us one thing, that for the next coming 4 years, the country will be run in terms of a combination of all individual that will be put in there in terms of the amount. So you will need to choose amongst your own mandates to say which one you think I can go forward. But people, now we are stuck here because people want to bring their whole bucket of list, but that could have only been happened if you had a majority that we can implement it. So they just need to cut themselves out of that story, decide which one they think they want to put forward. The issue of service delivery, it goes across the board of each and every member of any other political party. Those things are the things that they should be prioritizing to say that let's look on things that are common to all of us, and we're going to put them into the basket, and then we proceed with it, then we form a government. Unfortunately, that's what it tells us. The next coming 4 years will either be sitting with a coalition or a government of national unity. Finish and clear. I think we'll have a progress there.
All right, Joey in Springs, thank you. Yeah, interesting. A lot of people sort of heading that way, I think. Not everyone, of course. Samu in Northwest. Hi, I'm Konto Wesizwe, the political party. Go for it.
Hello, Stephen. How are you?
I'm well, Samu. Go for it.
But you can all see that MK is not interested in government. All they are advocating for is to see an instability in South Africa.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Because they've already said this. They want all the cases of their leader be removed from court. Only that they would take part in government. That's all they are advocating for. And your questions too. I think your questions are giving that hope to your guests. All your questions are somehow putting an anxiety through the country.
Okay, all right. Samu in Northwest, thank you. Yeah, no, I hear you. There's a lot to it, of course. Marule in Bushbuck Ridge, I've got 30 seconds for you, Marule. Go for it.
Yeah, SG, I know that time is on or not on my side. My contribution will be let common sense prevail tomorrow. Let the parties agree. They must put their personal egos aside, set up a government, and then they deploy their best candidates and employees in government so that they service the nation. And then maybe they can start their shenanigans after a year or two if nothing is moving. But for now, we need stability in the country. We need a government that is working.
Put everyone together. Let's have a team of the best people, put them together and see what happens.
Yes.
All right, Marula and Bushbuck Ridge, thank you. Interesting suggestion. All right, I don't know how it's going to play out. I can tell you that we're due to speak to Bheki Mtolo. He's the Provincial Secretary in KwaZulu-Natal for the ANC in the next few moments. We'll ask him, of course, about what's happening, but particularly around Mxolisi Kawunda, the mayor of eThekwini. He's been redeployed. Also, Chris Papas, he's from the DA. He's the mayor of the Umgeni local municipality. He's made a few suggestions. We'll try and sort of read whatever tea leaves he gives us about what the DA may be looking for. And then also in the next hour, Velenkosini Klabisa, the leader of the IFP, their big announcement, they will join a government of national unity. Good morning. It's the day before the National Assembly, sitting with SFM, leading the conversation at 7 o'clock.
In our top stories, Gauteng EFF chair removed as Ekurhuleni's finance MMC and National Assembly's first sitting to go ahead as planned. Good morning. The city of Ekurhuleni Mayor Nkosindiphile Xhakaza has fired the Gauteng EFF chairperson, Nkululeko Dunga, as a member of the Mayoral Committee on Finance. The mayor says the aim of the decision is to ensure the city quickly completes and approves the annual budget. There's also an urgent need for the turnaround of what he says is the city's worrying financial position. The city's member of the Mayoral Committee on Planning and Economic Development, Nomatlo Zinkosi, has in the interim been assigned to take over Dunga's position. Financial services provider Old Mutual Investments says trade unions should support a government that will ensure the protection of the workers' pensions and the creation of a conducive business environment. This as the SACP rejects the possibility of a government that would include the DA. The financial services provider's portfolio manager, Jason Swart.
For COSATU, for example, one of the priorities should be the value of the pension funds as well as some sort of stability and confidence in the business environment. And both of those would be conditional on a more centre-right government. But, I guess this is in the political space, so there's a lot of allegiances and alliances when it comes to labor unions. So we are hopeful that, they do come up with some sort of compromise that promotes both skills development, that also promotes entrepreneurial small business.
The first sitting of the National Assembly will go ahead as scheduled tomorrow. This after the Constitutional Court refused to grant the Umkhonto weSizwe Party an interdict to stop the sitting. Yesterday, the Apex Court found the party did not produce evidence to support its desired outcome of the case. According to the Constitution, the first sitting of the National Assembly must take place within 14 days after the declaration of the election result at a date and time for the Chief Justice to determine. Zoleka Korashe reports.
The Constitutional Court has found that the applicant failed to invoke its exclusive jurisdiction. It holds that it is not in the interests of justice to grant direct access, as the results were announced between the 1st and 2nd of June to the knowledge of the applicant. However, despite this knowledge, the party only launched the application on the 10th of the same month. Therefore, the court finds that the urgency is self-created. The court adds that the party has also misconstrued Section 46 of the Constitution, which prescribes that the National Assembly consists of no fewer than 350 and no more than 400 members.
A 40-year-old man has started to serve his life sentence after the KwaMhlanga Magistrates Court in Mpumalanga found him guilty of raping a 15-year-old girl. This crime was committed in Moloto village 12 years ago when convict Abashon Mayo and the girl were neighbors. The National Prosecuting Authority's provincial spokesperson, Monica Nuswa.
It is reported that on the 2nd of December 2012, the victim was on her way from church when she came across the accused, who sent her to buy him a cold drink from the local shop. On her way back from the shop, the accused dragged her to the house and forcefully raped her. The victim reported the incident to her aunt and further stated that it was not the first time the accused had sexually violated her. The victim's mother was informed and the police were alerted.
Furtherfield and finally, Argentine lawmakers have voted to approve in general a controversial raft of economic reforms. However, the right-wing President Javier Milei was forced to concede on a number of proposals. Earlier, there were clashes between riot police and anti-government protesters. The BBC's Kat Weiner reports.
Local media described the scenes outside Congress as a battlefield, as protesters overturned cars and set them alight. Some hurled stones and petrol bombs at riot police, who responded with pepper spray, rubber bullets and water cannon. The bill includes proposals to declare a state of economic emergency in Argentina, cut pensions and water down labour rights. But Congress is divided over the measures, and the government has already been forced to back down over plans to privatise the national airlines, the post office and state media outlets.
Recapping the top story, the city of Ekurhuleni Mayor Nkosindiphile Xhakaza has fired the Gauteng EFF chairperson Nkululeko Dunga as a member of the Mayoral Committee on Finance. The mayor says the aim of the decision is to ensure the city quickly completes and approves the annual budget. For SAFM News, I am Anne Musa.
A very good morning to you. In your SFM sports headlines, it's cricket. Despite a rocky start in New York, the Proteas coach Rob Walter remains confident in his top-order batsmen. And in soccer, despite late pressure, Tuks holds firm to earn a draw with Baroka FC, keeping their promotion hopes alive. All these stories and more just before 7:30.
SAFM. Guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
A couple of crashes around Joburg. One on the N3 South is the big one. It's just around London Road. 2 lanes are closed, and there's a heavy backlog now into Buccleuch interchange. Also, if you're on the northbound track coming up from Edenvale through Alex towards Limborough Park, there's some delays there, obviously, with the onlooking factor. Crash on the M1 South at William Mandela, so as you approach Four Ways from Rivonia Road. That starts to slow up. And no traffic lights into Pretoria at Mopani Highway at Eskia and Pathlali. That's heavy. Durban heading up to the airport. 2 queues to work through, both pretty heavy. One from before the M7 through to Westwood Mall. The second queue, and we saw this section queuing all day yesterday through Kwamashu up towards the Mhlanga exit. Cape Town, no traffic lights. Robert Sobukwe, Stellenbosch Arterial, 35th Avenue, some very heavy congestion at that big junction just on the northern side of the airport, and the N7 going north queuing heavily from Langa through towards Viking Way in the Epping area. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
SAFM Sunrise. A vivid start to your day.
7 minutes after 7, good morning. Welcome to SFM Sunrise. I'm Stephen Grootes. 'Twas the day before the election of a new National Assembly, before the swearing in, and there are so many questions about what is going to happen. In a moment, Becky Mtolo already on hold, the ANC Provincial Secretary in KwaZulu-Natal, the redeployment of Mxolisi Kaunda as the Mayor of eThekwini. It's a big story because there's so many implications that flow from it. Also on the political situation in KwaZulu-Natal. And we'll hear also from the Mayor of Umgeni for the Democratic Alliance, Chris Pappas, try and sort of read the tea leaves there about what the DA is planning to do. Other parties that may or may not be part of the Government of National Unity, trying to get as many of them as we can for you. The Patriotic Alliance and Rise Mzansi, looks like both of them will join. We'll try and hear from them, try and hear from parties that will be out of it as well. And the National Freedom Party, it seems, holding the balance of power in KZN. Ivan Barnes yesterday saying he hadn't met with MK. By the end of yesterday, he had met with former President Jacob Zuma, also met with the IFP's Tami and Tuli, so a lot going on there. Good morning, 8 after 7.
First in the morning, SAFM Sunrise with Stephen Grootes.
Confirmation last night that the ANC in KwaZulu-Natal has now decided to remove Mxolisi Kaunda as the Mayor of eThekwini and redeploy him to the National Council of Provinces. Kaunda's administration has been strongly criticised. Residents there say service delivery has started to fail. There have been long-running problems with water. At the same time, there have been some claims that the administration has not been spending its money properly. The situation in KwaZulu-Natal right now, as you know, is quite complicated. The Provincial Secretary for the ANC in KwaZulu-Natal is Becky Mtolo. Becky, good morning.
Good morning, Stephen, and good morning to your lovely viewers.
Why are you redeploying Mxolisi Kaunda? Why will he no longer be the Mayor of eThekwini?
No, Stephen, let me take you back in August 2019 when Mxolisi Kaunda was redeployed from the provincial government when he was MEC for Transport and Community Safety. You remember that in 2019 August when Zandile Kumete was removed as a mayor, then you have to make an intervention through Mxolisi Kaunda. Then he was redeployed from the provincial government, being an MEC for Community Safety and Housing and for Transport. And it was made clear to Kaunda that this is a temporal intervention at some point in time when the organization feels that it needs to bring someone for a longer period. It will redeploy him. It was a clear understanding from him. Then also, even last year, there was a time when Kaunda we have to work with him and then try to allow him to stabilize the seat and all that. Now the time has come that we redeploy him back to another sphere of government, which in the form of National Council of Provinces.
Okay. Did he fail as mayor? Did he do a bad job?
No, it didn't. Kaunda didn't fail as mayor. He's one of the best mayors. Let me tell you, at some point in time, I think early this year, we went to present to the national officials of the ANC, that includes the president. Kaunda did a very well presentation. He knows the city with his fingertips, but I think we undermined the problems that and the challenge that the city was facing. He had not enough time to solve them, but he tried all else. I think he has tried to move the city from what it was to where it is now. Yes, it is not in a state where we say we're comfortable and we're happy, but he did an exceptional good job.
If he did such a good job, why did the national government come close to taking it into administration? I mean, they sent a task team to eThekwini while he was mayor, after he became mayor. They clearly didn't get the impression he was doing a good job. They didn't see progress.
It is the obligation of all spheres of government in terms of cooperative governance to cooperate and support each other. But it's also a constitutional obligation to the provincial government, to the national government, that they must, in terms of their discharge of their responsibilities, they must also support local government as a sphere of government. Then it's not something untoward. In fact, that's what they should do on daily and on weekly and on monthly basis. It's a constitutional obligation imposed to these spheres of government that they must provide meaningful support to local government. Then the intervention of national government is not an intervention per se. It's a provision of the role that is imposed to them by the Constitution to provide support to local government.
Okay, he was doing such a good job, making so much progress, that the national government thought that he needed more help. I mean, come on, Becky. I mean, you've got a mayor who's being moved. I understand what you say, that he was there temporarily, fine. But I don't think the people of eThekwini feel that he was doing a very good job, and the national government seems to agree with them.
No, Stephen. Of course, as I've been saying, we are not remember, don't judge Pounder it didn't found a well-working city. That counter to where it found the city, where it is now. I'm saying to you, to where, if you look at August 2019 and where the city is now, it is better than it was in 2019. That is because of the work that has been done by counter. And I'm saying, and I'm admitting to you, it is not to a level where we can say it was at a level. For example, it's not to the level it was in 2016. It's not to the level it was in 2014. We appreciate that. But it's better than it was in 2019 before Counter came in. Then Counter did a sterling job, but at the end of the day, we need to bring a new someone who will take it at least until 2026.
Who is the new someone? Who's it going to be?
The ANC will engage in those processes and then engage other partners in eThekwini. Remember, in eThekwini, we don't have a simple majority as the African National Congress. When we put a mayor, we have to decide on our own as the ANC, put the proposal to those who think will work with, and rearrange on how we build new partnership that will build a strong partnership government that will lead in the best interest of the people of eThekwini, because eThekwini Metro is not just a metro that serves the people of eThekwini per se, it is a metro that serves the people of KwaZulu-Natal. It is a metro that serves the people of South Africa. It is a metro that, in terms of making KZN being a second popular province, being a second contributor to GDP in the country, is because most of that GDP that is produced, that economic activity, those jobs that are there in KwaZulu-Natal, and then the people that are staying in KwaZulu-Natal, majority of them are in eThekwini. Everything that makes KZN is about eThekwini. Then eThekwini is not only about KwaZulu-Natal, but it's also about South Africa.
Okay. Becky, we know the IFP says it will join a government of national unity. Tomorrow the KwaZulu-Natal legislature has to meet. Are you going to support Tommy and Tuli from the IFP for the position of Premier?
Yeah, I will support Tommy Tuli because I think these are the parties that eventually we think will work with, and then the IFP, we have worked with the IFP for 30 years in KwaZulu-Natal from 1994, even at the heart where our relations with the IFP were at a very bad state around the 90s. But we're able to tolerate each other, work with each other. Because of that work and that relationship that lasted for 30 years, it has culminated to create at least a political environment in KwaZulu-Natal that you can say is fairly peaceful. For example, I was saying to people, one thing that people are not appreciating is that in these elections of 2024, it's the first time that you go to elections and then until you go to vote, and then there's no political deaths especially between the fight between the ANC and the IFP. It is a result of that work and that cooperation and that partnership that lasted for 30 years. It has produced a lot of results for the people of KwaZulu-Natal. Then IFP's got some huge experience in the government, especially local government and provincial government. We've also got a huge experience as the ANC. Then it's a partnership of people who possess political experience, who have traveled a province that is violent, who have stabilized the same province to be peaceful, who also run various government entities, either together and individually.
Okay, so do you think then, are you going to, I presume, get support from the Democratic Alliance? We're not sure yet, but I presume. If you and the IFP work together, you have 40 seats. the EFF and MK together have 39 seats. It all comes down to the National Freedom Party. We know their leader, Ivan Barnes, met both, I think, with Tommy and Tuli and with former President Jacob Zuma yesterday. Do you know which way he's going to go? Are you going to be able to keep MK out of power in KZN?
No. Remember. There's a myth that people believe that MK party is a majority in KZN. If it's a majority, why it doesn't form government? Because a party that is not a majority is a party that can form government. Then in KwaZulu-Natal, there's no party that is a majority. That's why every party speaks with every party. And NFP, they told us that they will meet every party, which is correct. and the MKP is trying to meet all other parties except the ANC. I think they've decided to sideline the ANC. We shouldn't have a problem with that. But as I'm sitting before, we met Mr. Jacob Zuma. We were having a meeting as parties, and I can say, safely say, NFP is with us. Remember, our relationship with NFP dates back from 2011, and it has never been. It has been a good relationship. As we speak now, we are running Nongoma together. We are running Edumbe together. They are part of eThekwini as a form of the deputy mayor. The NFP always work with us, and because we have never undermined that relationship we have with the NFP.
Bheki Mtholo, thank you very much indeed. Provincial Secretary for the African National Congress in KwaZulu-Natal. Okay, confirmation then that the ANC will support the IFP's Tami Ntuli for the position of Premier, and you just heard Bheki Mtholo saying very clearly they believe the NFP is with them. 18 minutes after 7, you with SAFM. This is all about a government of national unity, which the IFP says it will join. Let's hear from some of the other parties. Songezo Zibi is the leader of Rise Mzansi. They have 2 seats in the National Assembly. Songezo, good morning to you. Are you going to join a government of national unity?
Good morning, Stephen, and thank you for having me on. So what we've said in our discussions with the ANC and other political parties that the most important thing is to get over the proceedings tomorrow. We need to have a speaker, we need to have a deputy speaker, and we need to have a president. So that is the first thing. The second thing is I think that the formation of the executive requires really the 3 parties that have already said that they're going to work together, the ANC, the DA, and the IFP. I think there's sufficient majority there. Given the number of political parties that have said they're not joining, it's just a grand coalition. It's not a government of national unity, to be honest. And I think we should say as such to listeners. Our position is that the parliament and legislatures are absolutely important. And not everybody can be in the government, in the executive itself. You need to ensure that accountability happens and so on. And that is why we have chosen to say that while the ANC in government should have a president, the speaker should come from an opposition political party.
Okay, so will your members, you yourself, and I think Makashula Ghana is the other member you have in the National Assembly tomorrow, you'll take the oath, I presume. After that, will you then, by secret ballot, vote for Cyril Ramaphosa to be president?
Yeah, our position is that we support an ANC president. If the ANC supports Cyril Ramaphosa, then that's what we would support. What we will not support is an ANC speaker.
Okay. Would you accept a nomination for speaker?
No, absolutely. Look, Stephen, I'm new in Parliament. I think one of the things that we said in Rise Mzansi when we started is that it's important to get people into positions where they can perform the task as well as possible. I'm new in Parliament. I have never worked in Parliament before. I look forward to doing the work of an MP, holding the executive to account, and also being the link between voters and Parliament. I think the other political parties will have plenty of candidates to elect a speaker.
Do you know if the DA has yet agreed to join the government of national unity? We know the IFP has. My understanding is the Patriotic Alliance has. You've told us that you will support Ramaphosa when he's nominated by the ANC tomorrow. Do you know where the DA stands? Are they part of conversations you've been having?
No, not at all. I don't know where the DA stands, but I do have, given what we've been hearing in other conversations and in news coverage, I do expect that in the end there will be some form of cooperation between the ANC, the DA, and the IFP that enables the 3 parties largely to govern together.
Songezo Zibi, thank you. Leader at Rise Mzansi. He'll be taking his oath in Parliament tomorrow. 21 minutes now after 7. You're with SAFM. Let's hear then from one of the provincial leaders, if I can call him that, of the Democratic Alliance in KwaZulu-Natal. Let me be correct. Chris Pappas is the mayor of the Mgeni local municipality for the DA. Mr. Mayor, good morning to you and thank you for your time. You've been spelling out what you think needs to happen in KZN. Tami Bheki Mtholo's just told us that he will be voting for the IFP. His representatives will vote for the IFP's candidates in the KwaZulu-Natal legislature tomorrow. What kind of government do you think KZN needs?
Morning, Stephen, and morning to everyone who's listening this morning. I think
what is important for me is what we campaigned on, and those were our 7 pledges. So if those can resonate in a new government, then we will support that. And obviously, whether we are part of that government in the executive or in positions in the legislature, our role in ensuring that those are delivered remain our key priorities. Those related to the economy foremost. We have huge unemployment in our province, crime, ending corruption in the government, and then restoring water across the province. We have huge challenges with water. So those are still our main focus. While positions are important, the issues that we campaigned on still remain the top priority for us.
Okay, so will your members in the provincial legislature, insofar as you know, be voting by secret ballot for Tommy and Thuli as well? They'll support the idea of an ANC-IFP arrangement, which the DA would be a part of in KZN?
So what we've made clear is that we believe in proportionality. That's the first thing. So the political party with the most number of votes then, makes sense for them to get the premiership. But more important than that is that the discussion has to be agreed on at a national level. There'll be no agreement in KwaZulu-Natal without an agreement at a national level, and that is what we're waiting for. More than that, there has to be something that is in writing. We are not going on gentlemen's handshakes. We want our points put forward. I think Songezo before me also spoke on something that's very important as well, and that is accountability. So it's not just about the executive positions, but it's also about the accountability mechanisms that exist in our system, and that is mainly the legislature in this case, since we're talking about KwaZulu-Natal, and the committees that fall underneath that.
Okay, so you would need to have a written agreement in place by this time tomorrow, really, for anything to happen in KZN, which is then connected to the sort of Grand National, the Government of National Unity. I mean, that's a lot of paperwork that needs to be sorted out by this time tomorrow.
Yes, of course, but also we are practical about the situation. We've broken down the stages of what needs to take place. So the most important thing for tomorrow, for example, is the election of the president, the speaker, and the deputy president, and the chief whip. Thereafter, then it is the formation of the cabinet as well as the committees in parliament. From there, then you take it to the next step, which is the policy positions and the program of action in government. So we're not naive to the fact that 14 days is very difficult to make all of this work. But what we do want to make sure that happens is that government can continue. And the first step in doing that is as president at a national level, and in the provinces, it must be premiers and speakers.
Are you concerned that, in fact, there might not be a new premier in KwaZulu-Natal tomorrow? Many things can happen. People vote by secret ballot. The Umkhonto weSizwe members of the legislature may not show up. I don't know. They're not going to come to the National Assembly, they tell us, although there's some indications they may arrive. If they do not arrive, the meeting can probably go ahead. If they do arrive and vote with the EFF, and the NFP does, despite what Bheki Mtholo tells us, does in fact join them, well, then it could be a tie, 40 each on each side. I mean, it's hard to know what will happen.
Yeah, it is hard. I mean, you go on good faith in some of these situations. You expect that when your partners agree to vote a certain way that they do, but you never know. We've heard rumors in the province of attempts to bribe different members. We've heard attempts of people who are disgruntled within particularly the ANC, who might vote a different way. But, you enter into these discussions having faith that the leadership of other political parties have a handle on their members and the way that they vote, and that you go into it with the best intentions to form a government afterwards. But as you say, some of these things really are up to chance on the day.
And you yourself, are you staying as the mayor of Umgeni, or do you expect to go to the legislature? I've seen some speculation, Mr. Mayor, that perhaps you could be an MEC.
I put out a statement last night, Stephen, to say that I'll remain here in the Umgeni municipality. We have a 5-year project here that I will now be completing, and I think there's still a lot of work here to do. We've become a beacon of what can happen in the province, and I want to complete that. What would be nice and what would be helpful is to have a provincial government that is not hostile, what we've seen in the past, a provincial government that is supportive, a provincial government that is able to make resources available when there are things such as disasters, and not use political affiliation as a tool to try and win back municipalities. So I'm looking forward to continuing my stint here as mayor.
Chris Pappas, thank you, Mayor of the Mgeni local municipality for the Democratic Alliance. All right, so some insight then, and just to sort of recap where we are, there you've heard from the Democratic Alliance in KZN to an extent. You've heard as well from Rise Mzansi. They say their 2 seats will go to President Cyril Ramaphosa. You heard from Becky Mtolo earlier from the ANC confirming then that they will support Tami and Thuli from the IFP in tomorrow's KZN election, and he believes the NFP will back them as well. 27 after 7.
This is SAFM Sport with Zai Khan.
Zai, good morning. Robert Walters confident about our batters.
Yes, despite a rough start, Coach Walter is backing his batters, keeping faith as they gear up for Nepal come Saturday. The top 4 in Riza Hendricks, Quinton de Kock, Aidan Markram and Tristan Stubbs have managed a combined 107 across the opening 3 matches against Sri Lanka, Netherlands and Bangladesh. Now the team, they've since moved on to the Caribbean where they'll face Nepal. Walter confident and confirming he will retain faith in his batting lineup.
We'll not make too many changes unless the conditions tell us to do that. Obviously, it was a tough sort of outing in New York for the top order, so certainly don't want to change there. Want to allow guys to hopefully play on a better surface.
Soccer news, Baroka FC and University of Pretoria could only manage a point each after playing to a 1-1 draw in their PSL promotion playoff encounter. Despite Baroka continuing to pile the pressure in stoppage time, Tuck stood firm to hold the home side and moved to 4 points, while Baroka remained rooted at the bottom with just 2 points. Other soccer news, the PSL confirming the top performers during the 2023-24 DStv Premiership season will be honoured during an award ceremony on the 23rd of June, live on SABC 1 from 6:30 in the evening. Incumbent Teboho Mokoena is vying for the coveted PSL Footballer of the Season award alongside his Mamelodi Sundowns teammate Ronwen Williams, as well as Ikram Reyners of Stellenbosch FC. Williams and Reyners are also nominated for the Players Player of the Season category, alongside Orlando Pirates fan favourite Patrick Maswanganyi. And Sundowns leading winning coach Rulani Mokoena will be against his Orlando Pirates counterpart Jose Rivero and Stellenbosch's Steve Barker for the Coach of the Season award. Cricket action, India defeating the United States by 7 wickets to reach the T20 World Cup second round yesterday, chasing 111 to win the Group A clash. India secured a 3rd win in 3 games for Rohit Sharma's team with 10 balls to spare. Meanwhile, Shafane Rutherford scored late 68 runs from 39 deliveries to help the 2-time champions, the West Indies, beat New Zealand by 13 runs in Trinidad. The Caribbean side posted 149 for 9 in their 20 overs. They then restricted the Black Caps to 136 for 9. West Indies, with 3 straight wins, have booked their spot in the Super 8s, while the Black Caps, with no wins after 2 games, are on the brink of elimination. And finally, tennis. Former world number 1 Naomi Osaka blasted her way into the quarterfinals of the Serkenbosch grass court tournament with a rapid-fire victory. She took down the home favourite Suzanne Lehmann 6-2, 6-2 in less than an hour. We'll bring you more sport at the top of the hour. I'm Zai Khan.
Zai, thanks very much indeed. All right, you've heard from the ANC in KwaZulu-Natal. You've heard from Rise Mzansi. You've heard from the DA. You'll hear from the IFP leader, Velenkosini Klabisa, in the next half an hour. You're with SFM leading the conversation, 7:30.
Good morning. In the headlines, the clock is ticking for political parties to reach agreements ahead of the formation of the ANC proposed government of national unity. Yesterday, the IFP President Velenkosini Klabisa confirmed his party support for the ANC's proposal. The city of Ekurhuleni Mayor Nkosindiphile Xhakaza has fired the Gauteng EFF chairperson Nkululeko Dunga as a member of the Mayoral Committee on Finance, and the UN Refugee Agency says the number of people forced to leave their homes because of violence or persecution has risen for the 12th consecutive year to reach 120 million. I'll have details on these and other stories at 8.
SAFM. guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Still very heavy on Joburg's N3 South. It's a crash at Alex just by the London Road exit. A couple of lanes are closed and traffic is backlogging heavily right through towards the Buccleuch interchange northbound. Getting caught having a look as well. Crash on the R59 into Joburg by Michelle Avenue. Another day of big delays coming up through Swartkoppies Road. Collision on Main Reef Road near Press Avenue. So in from Amalgam in towards that Crown area. Very heavy. And a collision holding up out of Randburg this morning. It's on Republic Road at Winnie Mandela. So from central Randburg across towards Santon, all sorts of pressures in that one. N14, here's one to avoid. Heading into Pretoria this morning. Top end of the Ben Schoeman. You're going to be asked to sit in heavy traffic moving through Eupheus Road and up towards the CBD. You might want to come off at Eupheus Road and duck through Fountain Circle, perhaps Durban. 2 queues on the M2, both of them heavy. M7 through Spaghetti Junction to Westwood Mall, and then the secondary queue, probably even heavier actually, from Queen Nandi Drive to Umhlanga, and that section of the N2 queued pretty much all day yesterday, so we're thinking maybe there's an additional restriction in the roadworks towards Gateway. It is very heavy. Cape Town side, the N1 into town, busy coming through from the around Plattercliff Hill towards Kuberg Interchange, and just note that as you come off the elevated freeway, there are already some closures around the CTICC Centre. That's ahead of tomorrow's first sitting of the new National Parliament, and those traffic restrictions are in place for the next couple of days, and they will cause some localised congestion. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
The business update on SAFM.
Lengletshele, morning again. How are the markets?
Well, kicking things off in Asia, stocks are trading mostly mixed following the similar cues from Wall Street overnight as traders reacted to soft U.S. inflation data that helped ease concerns about the outlook for interest rates. And the Fed also left interest rates unchanged as widely expected and revealed that officials now expect only one interest rate cut this year. With that, the Japanese Nikkei is trading 0.13% lower, while the Chinese Shanghai index is down 0.2%. Over in the US, futures pretty mixed, with the Dow the only index in the red. This comes as investors on that front digest the Fed's hawkish stance. Back at home, the JSE rebounding, with the all-share closing the day almost 1.3% higher. And in your currency action, the local unit faring pretty well, currently leading the gains in the emerging market basket of currencies. It's sitting at 18.42 to the dollar.
And then SARS is slapping Temu and Shane with new taxes. We had a media conversation about this yesterday. It's very important.
Very important, Stephen. And if you are a regular shopper on these platforms, you have to prepare to pay more for the items you've ordered. This comes as SARS agreed to charge additional tax on orders below 500 Rand. So this would be a 45% import duty plus VAT. This is at the same level local clothing retailers have to pay. Now, the South African apparel industry has welcomed the government's new regulations, saying it levels out the playing field. In the past, local players in the apparel industry accused these retailers of using an extremely high number of small orders in order to pay lower duties. Now, this rule will come into effect on the 1st of July.
And then MultiChoice sinking deeper into the red. There's, of course, the big Canal Plus deal.
Tough times seem to be lasting for MultiChoice, Stephen, as it continues to lose subscribers. During the annual period, the company reported a 9% decline in active subscribers, which then resulted in a fall in its revenue. Now, MultiChoice has been struggling with foreign exchange issues in Nigeria and a challenging macroeconomic environment, and this saw it slip deeper into the red as its loss widened. Company CEO Calvo Mawela says these numbers were expected given the natural falling off of some customers after last year's Rugby World Cup, which initially brought in 1.4 million subscribers. In the meantime, those takeover talks between MultiChoice and Canal Plus are still ongoing. Canal Plus has been aggressively buying MultiChoice shares for almost 4 years now, after initially taking a 6.5% stake in October 2020 rather. It now owns a 45.2% of MultiChoice. The takeover deal has been approved by shareholders and is now awaiting regulatory approvals.
Lengletshele, thank you so much. Back, of course, tomorrow. More news, business news through the day here on SFM, 25 minutes to 8.
Call us on 086 000 2032.
Hamilton and Soweto, hi, good morning. A government of national unity, what do you think?
Good morning, Stephen. I think that the political organization that say they cannot form part of the GNU are missing out at what the citizens had said. What do I say? I mean, after the elections, all except one political organization said one thing, that the people had spoken, that they do not want ANC to govern. However, they do not read the complete statement. The statement said, ANC, we don't want ANC to govern alone. We want ANC to govern with other political organizations. That is where Cyril Ramaphosa had us corrected, and then he suggested the GNU. However, the other political organizations have missed out that statement, that part, that all of them must come in and govern, which is the reason why we, the citizens, did not give one organization the majority votes to rule.
Yeah.
All of them are split in smaller percentage, so that we want them all together. So when they say, because I'm EFF, cannot govern because there is DA, or because I'm so I cannot govern because there is so, they are missing out on big opportunity. One is to get free airtime for 5 years, where they should prove themselves that they can really govern.
Yeah,
they're missing that out.
By airtime, you mean in Parliament?
Exactly, in Parliament. When they were in Parliament, therefore they will be getting themselves free airtime to prove themselves in 2029 that they are really a good organization to govern.
Sure.
That's what they are missing on.
All right, Hamilton, no, I hear you. Thank you on the line from Soweto. Interesting point. I mean, I do wonder what's going to happen to the parties that are left outside of this. And Umkhonto weSizwe is one. For the moment, it seems the EFF is another. So that's how it looks at the moment. Kirk in Cape Town. Hi, coalitions.
Good morning, Stephen. I was very daunted by this, the prospect of a government of national unity or coalition government after the results were announced. However, now I'm excited by the possibility of things actually getting done and people being really held to account. What does concern me is the lack of intention almost from MK and being such a major player now, more than the EFF. So, being from KZN previously, that's my real concern is what happens there. But it's so also encouraging to hear the IFP and the DA there speak so glowingly about the prospect of working together. So, look, I'm more excited than I was a week ago.
Yes,
I'm more optimistic.
You get used to an idea, hey Kirk. I mean, people do get used to an idea. Yeah.
Yes. And look, people are saying the right thing, but they've said the right thing for 30 years, and of course, execution has always been our challenge. But the MK dark horse just is like a monster lurking in the corner, and I still am concerned about that party. Hopefully, it's just. For me, I wish that it just fragments, that the internal fighting that's clearly going on there just weakens them and makes them less effective than the threat of what they could do.
All right. No, Kirk, I hear you. All right. Interesting view on MK. Strong view. Nolan on the line from George. Nolan, hi. You want to just give us a quick update on the George building collapse? And we remember the search finishing. I imagine the site being sort of sealed off. What's the latest that you've seen, Nolan?
Okay. Well, interestingly, morning, guys. Morning. Interestingly, on Friday evening, the department came out and stated that they are now starting with the formal investigations.
Yeah.
But then Monday morning, the municipal manager and the director of development and infrastructure resigned.
Oh.
There's quite a lot of interesting things popping up, but there doesn't seem to be getting any coverage. For example, the mayor also came out saying that, and this was late last month, that municipalities do not ensure that buildings are safe and that inspectors aren't qualified to check for safety, and that no municipality does inspections on multi-story buildings.
Yes, I think that is right. I think it's the Labour Department or someone else who does it, but yeah.
Yes. And, a lot of things have been popping up. For example, when the developer came out and said that they had a pre-application consultation early November, and that they received a phone call on the 1st of January stating that the plans have been approved. I don't know about you, but on the 1st of January, I was recovering from New Year's Day.
Yes.
And municipalities are normally closed during that time.
That's quite weird. All right, Nolan, thank you. You've reminded us of a few things we need to follow up on there. And, of course, with the election, the George building collapse has sort of disappeared off the radar. I'm putting it on my list of things. I have a list of post-election stories. Nolan, thank you. 19 minutes now to 8.
Which is the best way to reach success? Is it best to go alone, so you can go fast? Or for many to go together, so they can go far? What if you need to go fast and far? At RMB, we believe the best way to success doesn't make you choose when both are possible. When you need a thoughtful solution for financial complexity, there are only 3 letters you need to know. RMB, a division of First Rand Bank Limited, an authorized FSP and registered credit provider.
Channel your inner traveler on Top Travel this Saturday night at 8:30 on S3 as we scuba dive the kelp forests off the Cape Peninsula and kayak with the local penguins. Book into the beachfront suites of any couple's dream, take flight from Signal Hill, land just in time for lunch at Chef's Warehouse, and enjoy the classic Cape Town experience. That's Top Travel this Saturday night at 8:30. Repeat Sunday at 1 p.m. on S3.
June is Environment Month. During the month, we will observe World Environment Day on the 5th of June, World Oceans Day on the 8th of June, and Drought and Desertification Day on the 17th of June. Land resources such as soil, water, and biodiversity provide the foundation for the wealth of our societies and economies. They meet the growing needs and desires for food, water, fuel, and other raw materials that shape the livelihoods and lifestyles of millions of people. Environment Month gives us the opportunity to raise awareness and mobilize for action to protect the environment. We encourage all South Africans to scale up efforts that will significantly reduce negative impacts on our environment. Brought to you by the Department of Forestry, Fisheries and the Environment. For more information, visit www.dffe.gov.za.
Stephen Grootes on SAFM.
Right, 17 minutes now to 8 the time. Well, of course, still many developments to come ahead of tomorrow's sitting in the National Assembly and the 9 provincial legislatures, and there are several things we don't know. We don't know if the MK members of Parliament will go to the National Assembly. We don't know if the MK members of the KwaZulu-Natal provincial legislature will go to that sitting. We also haven't heard from the National Freedom Party itself which direction it will vote in KwaZulu-Natal, although the KwaZulu-Natal ANC provincial secretary Kim Tolo told us half an hour ago that the NFP will vote with them and the IFP and the DA. We don't yet know what will happen in the Gauteng provincial legislature, but we do know that the Inkatha Freedom Party has decided to join a government of national unity. The leader of the Inkatha Freedom Party is Velenkosini Hlabisa. Mr. Hlabisa, good morning.
Good morning, Stephen, as well as the listeners of the radio station.
Why have you decided to join this government of national unity with the ANC?
The IFP took the interest of the people of South Africa to come first because we have been preparing for a coalition government for over a long time, Stephen. And we had to look that amongst the political parties who can form a government, with whom can we work and take our country forward? And we are not strangers in working with the ANC and the Democratic Alliance.
Okay. Is it your understanding that the DA will join this too? Is that what you believe will happen?
That is my understanding. But our joining is not based on the DA joining. Is based on what we have been engaged on, and we agree since we have worked at various levels with the 2 political parties. Indeed, we can form a stable government and take our country forward.
Okay, so you will still support the ANC tomorrow, even if the DA says nothing today, and your members would vote in favour of Cyril Ramaphosa in the National Assembly? That's what you would tell them to do?
The IFP has made a decision, irrespective of what other political parties would say. But I believe anyone who has an interest of taking South Africa forward should look at the outcome of the results and comply to what the people of South Africa said, find each other, get common grounds, take our country forward.
Okay, and then in KZN, you will nominate Tami Ntuli to be Premier?
Yes, Tami Ntuli is our candidate. We have engaged with the Democratic Alliance, the ANC. We have a firm confirmation, and the discussions are still on progress with the NFP up until late evening, and I will get the final information today. But the last meeting we had with the NFP, they were on board. I do not take an offense as to why they met Jacob Zuma, because the IFP believes in listening everybody, even ourselves. Our door is still open to listen and engage the MK party to join a government of provincial unity so as we take our province forward.
Do you know, Mr. Hlabisa, if the meeting, I believe it was with Tami Ntuli and the leader of the NFP yesterday, Ivan Barnes, do you know if that meeting came before or after the meeting with Jacob Zuma? I'm trying to get an understanding, and the NFP should speak for themselves. It came after.
It came after, because I know about that one, that it came after in the evening.
Okay, so things seem pretty solid there. So whatever happens, you expect the DA to support you tomorrow, even if there isn't an agreement with them joining the ANC in a government of national unity. In other words, from what you know at this stage, you should have the support to get Tami Ntuli elected Premier tomorrow. You have 41 votes then with yourself, the ANC, the DA and the NFP in KwaZulu-Natal. That's what you expect to happen.
We have 40 votes confirmed and waiting for the final confirmation of the 41, of the extra one vote to make 41, because the NFP was on board in our last meeting early during the day. And then we saw then that he met Zuma thereafter. And thereafter he came back to meet Tami Ntuli as our provincial chair. As I've said, we do not take any offense as to why he is meeting Zuma. In South Africa, we need to engage everyone so that we can persuade and also listen to the other side of the story as held by another political party.
Okay. After the president is elected, there will be an inauguration. I've heard lots of sort of dates on when that will be, but sometime next week. Has to be within 5 days of him being elected. And after that, presumably President Ramaphosa will appoint a cabinet. At this stage, have you discussed cabinet positions? Is that a condition for you that a member of the IFP be in the national cabinet as part of this government of national unity?
No, it is not a condition for the IFP that we want certain position, because we do not want to bargain for positions instead of concentrating in the interest of our people. Our view, therefore, is that it will be up to the president and up to the discussions, because for now we have agreed on broad principles that let us find each other and take our country forward. We are working on the framework, which will be finalized with details as to how this GNU will be regulated, because it is not provided by the Constitution, but by circumstances, and as to where a member will be playing a role will be done as final details once the whole thing is finalized.
Do you believe a government of national unity would be stronger if MK joined it?
Every political party that has capable people with abilities and a common goal to take our country, not necessarily the MK. You can go even to a smaller parties, because there are smaller parties with 2 or 3 seats, but with brilliant people who have specialized skills and who can contribute in taking our country forward. The IFP believes our country is on the brink of being a collapsed state. we must utilize every brain we have and every expertise to turn the corner.
Okay. And has there been a discussion, I mentioned Cabinet, has there been a discussion about the position of Speaker of the National Assembly coming from a party other than the ANC, perhaps even from your party?
The discussion is ongoing. Hopefully, the last meeting, which is tonight, will finalize those details, because the Speaker and the Deputy Speaker and the President must be elected tomorrow. We can't go blind in the sitting, not knowing which direction we are taking. We have made a decision. We want to take our country forward. And first things that must happen tomorrow must be finalized this evening or early in the morning before we go to the sitting.
It's going to be an exciting 24 hours, isn't it, Mr. Hlabisa?
Yeah, well, the year 2024 was an exciting year, which we must use all our skills, abilities, even the media, support what is right for our country, so that we mobilize everybody, that let's turn things around and make our country a great country which we dreamt of in 1994.
Vera Nkosini Hlabisa, thank you very much indeed. Leader of the Inkatha Freedom Party on your radio this morning. So, another member, from what we can tell, of the sort of what we believe will be a government of national unity, very confident about what will happen in KwaZulu-Natal tomorrow, still trying to chase down Ivan Barnes, who holds the power over the single seat in KZN for the NFP. 8 minutes to 8.
SAFM. Guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Stays very heavy on Joburg's N3 South this morning. A big crash near London Road. A couple of lanes are closed at the scene, and traffic is heavy. It's all the way back through Buccleuch, marched up the N1 towards Allendale Road. That's on the southbound N1 towards Buccleuch, and marching back through Buccleuch towards Four Ways on the N1 going north. So that's just a general route to avoid. If you've got any hopes of getting to the airport on time this morning, forget about that. Get yourself onto alternative routes and avoid the N3 South. It really is a major delay. A lot of traffic from Bedfordview up towards Alex as well, with the onlooking factor on the northbound carriageway. Mike won't quite so again today from Boysons all the way through to about Corlett Drive. There's some traffic coming out of Republic Road onto Winnie Mandela, slow into the central Sandton area, and just heading into Pretoria, trying to avoid the N14 this morning, top end of the Ben Schoeman Highway. Very heavy backlogs up towards the R101 sort of join point, just as you go into the CBD. Come off at Centurion or come off at Euthes and hit some alternative routes. Durban's N2 North still absolutely chock-a-block. The usual queues going up through Spaghetti Junction towards Westwood Mall, and then you've got that secondary queue, which is likely to probably be with us all day today between Queen Nandi Drive and the Gateway. Looks like something's happened in the roadwork section there of a couple of days ago. Cape Town, collision on the N2 inbound through Somerset West just by Reunion. That's causing a delay. And the N1 into town, another busy morning with traffic sitting from Plattercliff Road to the Cooper Interchange. Very misty around Cape Town as well, so lights on, drive safely if it's misty where you are. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
When my son was accepted for national championships, I wasn't prepared for the costs. Then I remembered that Cash Converters has a 30-day cash advance loan. Just go to your nearest Cash Converters store with your jewelry, electronics, tech, or something valuable. They'll keep it safe for you, and you'll walk out with the cash you need. This loan made it possible for my son's dreams to come true. Now I'm a proud mom of a champion. Cash Converters. We buy, we sell, we loan cash.
Municipal services play a vital role in keeping our city safe, clean, and functional. By paying for municipal services like your water bill, you're investing in the future of the city of Johannesburg's water supply. Paying for your services is not just a transaction, but a commitment to the sustainability of your community. Let's continue to pave the way for a brighter tomorrow, one payment at a time. Brought to you by Johannesburg Water, a water utility that cares.
Real savings, real benefits. Here's what real clients say about OUTsurance.
My name is Alan. I'm 71 years of age and I live in Douglasdale. I'm paying 554 Rand a month for my 2022 Nissan Magnite.
Want a car insurance premium that'll blow your mind? SMS out to 30754 now for a quote. It's quick, it's easy, and it could save you hundreds of rands every month. Here's Amy.
To anyone who has not reached out to OUTsurance, what are you doing? Reach out today.
Blow your mind, not your paycheck. SMS out to 30754 and see for yourself why Outsurance was voted Best Car Insurer 2023 by the Star and Pretoria newsreaders. Here's Yusuf.
It just shows that Outsurance is top of the tops when it comes to insurers.
SMS out to 30754 now. That's out to 30754. Outsurance is a licensed insurer and FSP. T's, C's and limits apply. Premiums are risk profile dependent and reviewed annually. Client comments do not constitute financial advice.
Unlock a world of benefits. Welcome to SABC's TV License Rewards program. Ready to make your viewing experience more rewarding? Say hello to perks that go beyond just watching TV. Join us today at sabctvlicenserewards.co.za and instantly receive your first reward. But wait, there's more. You can get up to 500 Rand back. Become part of something bigger, a movement where watching TV isn't just a hobby, it's a catalyst for positive change. Register now at sabctvlicenserewards.co.za and open the door to a world of benefits. Plus, every time you tune in, you're making a difference. T's and C's apply. Remember, TV license fees aren't just payments, they make a difference.
Stephen Grootes on SAFM.
3 minutes to 8 now, the time. Well, let's get another view about what could, what might, what will happen over the next kind of 30 hours or so. In other words, by tomorrow afternoon, what will have happened in the various legislatures, what's going to have happened in the National Assembly. Kanita Hunter is an award-winning political journalist and author. Kanita, good morning. Good to have you on. So many variables at the moment. Will the MK MPs attend the National Assembly? Will they attend the KwaZulu-Natal legislature? Will the DA join the Government of National Unity? Will, dare I ask, will all of the ANC representatives vote the way they're supposed to? As things stand, do you think Cyril Ramaphosa will be elected president by Parliament again tomorrow?
Yeah, he will. He needs 201 votes, and I think that between the DA, the IFP, the ANC, Patriotic Alliance, Freedom Front Plus, that's that's sort of 5 out of the top 7 big political parties have agreed to be part of this GNU of sort. And so electing the speaker, the deputy speaker, and the president is going to be the easy part of what's to come.
Well, isn't that the point? Is that people may elect a president, find they don't get the position they want, and then what? I mean, they can't unelect him. They'd have to bring a confidence motion. And even bigger, then what?
The ANC is not speaking positions and is not talking about, what they can give in exchange just yet. The first, they're just focusing on principle and whether they want to be, parties want to be part of this GNU. And then it said, kind of broke it up into pieces to say, first we get over this first hurdle. Do you want to join the GNU? What are we agreeing to in principle? Are we electing the president, which I think they passed? And then the last bit is going to be the tricky part, is how do you then essentially compensate these parties next week when the president has to sit and form a government.
All of this over the longer term, and I'm talking now over the next couple of years, is going to require, the most kind of incredible leadership. Decisions will have to be made, concessions will have to be given. Do you think the president's up for it?
I don't think so. I think what's to come is even worse than ANC factionalism that we saw in his first term, because you have the Patriotic Alliance that is very clear, that says we're going to vote with you on Friday, but we want the police ministry and we want the home affairs ministry. Whether the president gives it to them, there's a different story. But you're going to have to manage competing, conflicting interests at constantly, every day, if you like. What happens in terms of forcing your agenda as the president versus ministers who from other political parties that veer a different way? What happens when ministers from your own party mess up, or other smaller political parties use state resources for their own benefit? And so what it's going to need is a micromanager, someone who's going to keep their eye on the ball at every moment. And I think that the approach that President Cyril Ramaphosa has taken in the past of consensus building, I think when managing a government like this, you would need to have a leader who steps up versus this, what I described as a referee of a federation of ministers. He has to be the leader and has to set the tone because, any small marginal thing, even the time in which cabinet starts, can be up for negotiation.
Kanita Hunter, thank you very much indeed. Very interesting perspective. You're with SFM leading the conversation, 8 o'clock.
In our top stories, IFP to join Government of National Unity and over 100 million people forcibly displaced globally. Good morning. The clock is ticking for political parties to reach agreements ahead of the formation of the ANC proposed Government of National Unity. Yesterday, the IFP President Velinkosini Hlabisa confirmed his party's support for the ANC's proposal. Speaking in Durban, he said the IFP would be part of the system.
When we campaigned, we said people must take their protest to the ballot box and bring the ruling party below 50%. They did it. The IFP, in the interest of the people of South Africa, all who voted and spoke unanimously that no one political party will have a majority rule in South Africa, they said, find each other, take our country forward. We are heeding that call of the people of South Africa.
Meanwhile, 54 permanent delegates drawn from 9 provinces are expected to be sworn in the first sitting of the NCOP on Saturday after the 9 legislatures have been constituted. Mercedes Besent reports.
The NCOP consists of 90 delegates from the 9 provinces. Each province consists of a delegation of 10, led by the premiers. 4 are special delegates and 6 are permanent. In the first sitting, the permanent delegates are sworn in as members of the NCOP. This will be followed by the election of the NCOP chairperson, presided over by the Chief Justice. Once the chairperson has been elected, he or she will preside over the election of the deputy chairperson and the election of the chief whip of the NCOP.
The city of Ekurhuleni Mayor Nkosindiphi Leqhakaza has fired the Gauteng EFF chairperson Nkululeko Dunga as a member of the Mayoral Committee on Finance. The mayor says the aim of the decision is to ensure the city quickly completes and approves the annual budget. There's also an urgent need for the turnaround of what he says is the city's worrying financial position. The city's member of the Mayoral Committee on Planning and Economic Development, Nomatlozi Nkosi, has in the interim been assigned to take over Dunga's position. Dunga's dismissal comes after the ANC recalled the eThekwini Mayor Mxolisi Kaunda. Tomorrow is his last day in office, after which he will be deployed to the National Council of Provinces. This comes as coalition talks continue in KwaZulu-Natal following last month's general elections. The UN Refugee Agency says the number of people forced to leave their home because of violence or persecution has risen for the 12th consecutive year to reach 120 million. The agency's head Filippo Grandi warned that world leaders were failing to tackle the root causes of displacement. The BBC's Imogen Folks reports.
New conflicts breaking out, old ones continuing, and millions fleeing the violence. In Sudan alone, 9 million people have been driven from their homes in little more than a year. Syria, a conflict many have forgotten, remains the world's largest displacement crisis, with 13.8 million people unable to go home. The UN Refugee Agency condemned the warring parties, saying blatant violations of international law were driving displacement and misery.
Recapping the top story, the clock is ticking for political parties to reach agreements ahead of the formation of the ANC proposed Government of National Unity. Yesterday, the IFP President Velinkosini Hlabisa confirmed his party's support for the ANC's proposal. For SAFM News, I am Anne Musa.
A very good morning to you. In your SFM Sports Headlines, cricket, Rob Walter backing the Proteas top order to shine against Nepal. That's in the T20 World Cup. And in swimming, it's Ariane Titmus who set a new 200-metre freestyle world record at Australia's Olympic trials. We'll have the details for you just before 8:30.
SAFM. Guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
If you're just joining us, stay well away from Joburg's N3 South option this morning. Down towards Alex, it's a crash before London Road. A couple of lanes are closed. Traffic is crazy busy. It's back through Buccleuch, back down to Rivonia Road on the N1 North, and back up almost to New Road on the N1 South. That's how bad it is on the approaching highways into Buccleuch, and then you've still got to work down the N3 South towards the crash scene. Northbound very heavy as well from Galuli's up to Alex, with motorists having a look at that. N14 into Pretoria, top end of the Ben Skimmon. Stay off that one this morning. That's a very heavy backlog. Durban stays busy. N2 through Spaghetti Junction into the work zone, and then Queen Nutty Drive up to Gateway stays busy as well, into some new sort of roadwork layouts around the Gateway exit. And Cape Town Mitchell's Plain really battling this morning. Roadworks have been increasing their intensity of delay on AZ Berman Drive between the R300 and Highlands Drive. So both in and out of Mitchell's Plain's heavy. Highlands Drive to AZ Berman's bad, and even the R300 is choked all the way from the N2 highway down to off-ramp at that Stock Road for a turn into that traffic on AZ Berman. Trying to stay away from that part of Mitchell's Plain. It really is badly backed up. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
SAFM Sunrise. A vivid start to your day.
7 after 8, good morning. Good to hear from you this morning. All of the coalition developments that we've heard, particularly around KZN, a lot more to come. Ivan Barnes still not answering his phone. He's the leader of the National Freedom Party. We'll try and find out how all that's going to play out. From 8:30 this morning, we will be talking about our ports. A recent international poll finding that our ports are quite literally, the worst in the world. We'll find out if there's been any improvement, if there's a prospect for improvement. Good to hear from you on 086 000 203 7 after 8.
Weeknights on S3 are all about winning, and winning big with Wheel of Fortune. For the first time in South Africa, Wheel of Fortune is on S3, Monday to Friday at 7:30 p.m, where Rorisang has South Africans locked into the world of word puzzles. Watch contestants spin the wheel to stand a chance of walking away with 100,000 Rand, or a car valued at over 500,000 Rand. You can also be part of the show and win big. To be part of the show, log on to wheeloffortunesa.tv and let the wheel decide your fate. Channel your inner wordsmith with Wheel of Fortune SA on S3. Open up.
And we would buy 500 cars, and we would buy 500 more. So sell your car for the best price, and we won't think about it twice. We buy cars, we buy cars. We buy cars, we buy cars.
We Buy Cars, the easiest way to sell your car by far.
June is Environment Month. During the month, we observe World Environment Day on the 5th of June, World Oceans Day on the 8th of June, and Drought and Desertification Day on the 17th of June. Land resources such as soil, water and biodiversity provide the foundation for the wealth of our societies and economies. They meet the growing needs and desires for food, water, fuel and other raw materials that shape the livelihoods and lifestyles of millions of people. Environment Month gives us the opportunity to raise awareness and mobilise for action to protect the environment. We encourage all South Africans to scale up efforts that will significantly reduce negative impacts on our environment. Brought to you by the Department of Forestry, Fisheries and the Environment. For more information, visit www.dffe.gov.za.
Call us on 086 000 2032.
9 after 8. Good morning, Lynn. Hi, you're in Kimberley. It says here you want to talk power to truth. Go for it.
Good morning, Stephen. No, I want to talk about power to truth.
You don't mean truth to power?
No, JJ Tabani's program.
Oh, right. Okay. I think it might be truth to... Anyway, yeah.
Well, whatever. Stephen, first of all, I was very happy to see Prince Mashele back on the screen. He's been missing for some time.
Well, that's because he lied about a book he published, Lynn. Yes, that's why.
Yes, I know that. But I was very happy to see him. I like him as an analyst.
Okay, but he did lie about a book that he published. I mean, I think it's important not to forget that.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
It really, I'm sorry, Lynn, but it really does. It really does.
Well, he's a nice guy, but be that as it may, I don't know if you watched the program last night.
I didn't know.
You didn't. I was watching JJ's rant, and Stephen, the venom in his voice and the hatred that he said the DA hates white people.
The DA hates white people?
The DA hates white people.
Not black people?
I mean black people, apologies.
Okay,
the
yeah.
DA hates black people. And it was quite frightening, Stephen, the venom that he spoke with, and how many times he said that if you're a black person, you're on your own. I found that quite offensive because it's actually very, very racist. It came across to me as being racist. How many times he said the DA hates black people, over and above the fact that they have a fair amount of black people in the party.
Yeah, sure.
I just found that incredibly offensive, and I JJ does it fairly regularly.
Look, I mean, his rants are sort of famous, and I kind of understand why they do them, but, I didn't see it, and I can't comment on that. I do think that if he's going to say something, I mean, when I speak, I know that I have to be able to justify what I say, so let me maybe leave it there.
And have the evidence to prove that the DA hates black people.
Well,
anyway,
that does start a big political debate, Lynn. I mean, it is a belief that some people have.
Yes. Yeah. Anyway, I just wanted to have my rant this morning. Thank you.
Fair enough. All right, Lynn, thank you. Bond on the line from Gqeberha. Bond, hi. Good morning. The GNU and Parliament, yeah? Government of National Unity.
Good morning, Stephen, and your honourable listeners. I just want to throw a spanner in the works.
Of course you do, Bond, yes.
Yes. I'm not offering any predictions or permutations. I don't have powers of a Sangoma in any scale whatsoever. All I'm going to remind South Africans and also an advice to the incoming members. You know, where democracy started, it started in ancient Greece.
Yeah.
Where, because the community was small, the people's assembly, people congregated and took decisions personally. Although there was some segregation between aristocrats and those of the lower class, we cannot, 60 million of us, represent ourselves. Hence, this morphed into a parliamentary democracy. Only the 1988 Constitution prescribed for a form of government of national unity. This Constitution does not prescribe for any form of government. All it says is that you must be there, be faithful to the Republic, respect the Constitution and the laws. It's a constitutional democracy, but act in the interest of the people, So when they go there, they must know that it's not a job.
Yeah.
And nor a right. It's a privilege to represent us. We should be there. You understand? We should be there, but we've nominated them or elected them to be there. When they sit on their chairs, they must know they are sitting on us.
Okay.
When those chairs prick them from the bottom, they must know that we are telling them you're not doing what we are saying you must do. Whenever there's no greater honor than to represent someone, whether you are a politician or you are a lawyer, because that person can easily represent himself. So they must remind themselves of that. So there's no instrument of a GNU or coalition. It's just a government of convenience in order for governance to be easy for us. So they must remember that when they hug themselves tomorrow, celebrating that they are back or they've got a new job, they must not forget to apply for a job on the 4th year of this year, or of this term, because it's not a job. It's just a voluntary community service with the perks of getting a salary or a car or a rented house. It's not a job. It's our right. Theirs is a duty. Thank you very much.
Bond, thank you. No, an impassioned call, and I can hear your passion in this. Thank you. Bond on the line from Gqeberha. Matthews in eThekwini. Hi. Helen Ziller and the DA. Good morning, Matthews.
Good morning, sir. Good morning. I want just a short thing. A reminder that when Helen Ziller said they don't hate black people, but she needs evidence. Evidence is there. When they were campaigning in Phoenix, when Indians were killing black people in Phoenix,
the famous poster, the ANC calls you, we call you heroes, yes.
You call you heroes, what does that mean? Because they killed the black people. And recently, he said, if an employer gives you, you must take what the employer gives you. He knows that black people are most our employers. And then if a transport is 1,000 rand and then the employer said they are going to be 1,200, then what are going to eat? That's a sign that they hate black people. They can say what she said, but we know that. There's evidence, so many evidence that you can produce.
All right. No, Matthews, I hear you. Look, I mean, as I say, it's a long, complicated issue, and the DA will, I presume, decide how to respond to it if they choose to. 8:15.
At SFM Radio and at Stephen Grootes on Twitter.
Okay, so we're starting to get a picture of what a government of national unity will probably look like. Still a big piece missing that we haven't heard directly from the Democratic Alliance as to whether or not they will be a part of it. We also haven't heard directly from the NFP, by the way. There are a couple of other people and a couple of things that need to happen before Parliament meets tomorrow, and then I presume elect the President tomorrow afternoon. Let's see. In the meantime, there are, as you know, a huge number of problems that we as a country need to face. Probably the biggest is how we deal with jobs and unemployment, and particularly the large number of young people who are unemployed at the moment. Anne Bernstein's the Executive Director at the Centre for Development and Enterprise. Anne, good morning. You're making this point quite strongly, which is that it's all about the economy. That would obviously be the first place any new government would need to focus.
Good morning, Stephen. Well, it's a bit more complex than that. We've been working for the last 6 months on priorities for the next government, because after all, the most important question we all have to answer is, what can the next government do to get us out of all the problems we have? 15 years of economic stagnation, unemployment, and decline. And we're saying that there are 5 priority areas for action. You've got to fix the state. You've got to drive growth and development by freeing up markets and competition. You have to build a new approach to dealing with poverty and unemployment and mass inclusion. You've got to deal with the fiscal crisis, and we've got to strengthen the rule of law. So those are our 5 areas, and we're releasing action documents in each of these areas over the next few weeks. So I'm happy to talk about unemployment if you want, but this is part of the context of what we're trying to get everyone debating and thinking about as we head to some kind of new government.
A major issue is fixing the state. We actually have a mediated conversation in just sort of 12 minutes around the port system, which seems to be broken. Worst ports in the world, according to one important index. Fixing the state's a difficult thing to do, and it requires a sustained effort. Do you believe that all of our politicians, I mean, they may all say we want to fix the state, but they may have very different ways in which they want to do it?
That's true. We're putting up 2 catalytic actions, because you're right, it's a very big area. So our 2 catalytic actions, the first is to reduce the cabinet and reorganize the presidency. Now, I know you're going to tell me we're looking at coalition politics, but we have a country in crisis to fix. And if the executive of the country, the sort of heart of government, is big and unwieldy, everybody's saying this isn't working. So we're saying you need a smaller cabinet. Everyone's got to be focused on reform, and we hope in the negotiations that are taking place, they're not just arguing about power and positions, but also what are the priority actions this government has to take, and one of them is to get excellent people into government. Starting at the top, we need people fit for purpose who can actually run departments. And if we can't get all of the cabinet to be world-class, the president has the prerogative to appoint 2 people from outside of parliament. And we're saying very strongly, use this to bring in new leadership and talent that you need to drive the reform agenda in so many areas. So that is our first action, coupled with streamlining the presidency itself, which has grown sort of uncontrollably. When decisions can't be made, you put a parallel structure in the presidency or whatever. So we have practical proposals to support the president in driving a reform agenda and in leading the cabinet, so that we don't have more of the same, that we've had bad decisions, we've had contradictory decisions to the reform agenda, And that what South Africa needs now is a unified cabinet that is committed to deepening economic reform.
The other thing that we really need is the rule of law. The crime rate has gone up. You just can't do a business if you're in Khayelitsha and someone's extorting protection money from you. How important is that?
Well, it's one of our 5 priority areas. Couldn't agree more with you. We have to instill fear among the people, the elite who are looting on the state, and we have to remove fear from people in communities just going about their daily lives, going to work, to school, starting a business. We've got to deal with the crime rate. And we have to deal with the so-called mafias spreading in almost every sector of the economy. So this is absolutely vital. It starts with appointing the right people at the very top of policing and other parts of the criminal justice system. And we'll be bringing action proposals in 3 catalytic areas on the rule of law. We're sure on 2. The one is the NPA, which is absolutely vital, and the other is the Judicial Service Commission, where we need to make sure that we're getting the quality of people we need for the judiciary and affirming their independence. We're looking at also the murder rate and how one could bring that down as a catalytic action in the whole criminal justice system.
Thank you very much indeed. Anne Bernstein is the Executive Director of the Centre for Development and Enterprise.
The Science of Life on SAFM.
Well, I don't know if you've noticed in your circles, but I've certainly noticed, and I know in Europe there's a lot of evidence around this, that people are drinking beers with less alcohol.
Thank you.
Sorry about that. All right, my mistake there. In other words, people are changing what they drink. And in the past, if you ordered a beer, it almost always had alcohol, around 5%. At one point, by the way, sort of 70 years ago, it would have had 2% in many places, 5% now. In most cases now, people are looking for low alcohol beers or, in fact, for no alcohol beers. Vaughan Grootes is the Vice President for Marketing at South African Breweries. Vaughan, good morning.
Good morning, Stephen. Great to be here with you.
Beer is changing. Less alcohol, fewer calories. What changes are you seeing?
Yes, these are trends that have been coming for a long time, which we've been observing for a long time. And consumers are definitely looking for more opportunities to live healthily, to moderate their consumption.
In many places, younger people drink less alcohol than their parents did. You see this in many places in Europe, certainly in Britain. Is that the case here at all? I think here maybe we have the opposite problem. More young people are drinking stronger alcoholic drinks. So what sort of shift are you seeing in our society?
No, actually, our trends are similar. The absolute numbers, I think, are different to what we're seeing in Europe. But the trend is certainly something that we're observing here in South Africa as well.
What kind of drinks then do people want? I mean, they want something that's kind of familiar, but they want something that's a little bit different, and they want something that allows them to drive home safely and drive their mates home safely at the end of an evening.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, we've always been very strong advocates for beer being a product of moderation, and by introducing products like Corona Zero, we're able to offer consumers those options.
Okay. Are the options that are available changing? Is there a big spread of options now?
Absolutely. It's not just in the, let's say, non-alcoholic beer market. We also see this in flavored alcoholic beverages, which are introducing these zero alcohol options, as well as lower ABVs, as you mentioned previously.
Okay. Some alcohol-free beers seem to be quite expensive. I mean, maybe there's this idea that alcohol is expensive, and I know alcohol is very cheap to make. But the idea of, alcoholic beers, alcohol-free beers being sort of premium, is that changing? I mean, do you think the pricing is going to be the same? Is it the same now in some categories?
It is. So currently, what we're seeing in the market is that the non-alcoholic options of the beer brands are priced more or less at the same price as what the alcoholic version of it would be.
Okay. And Vaughan, when you look ahead, do you think there could be a time when actually this is the majority of your product? There's a lot less alcoholic product that you would be moving. In fact, you'll find that what the product that contains alcohol becomes really a minority.
Look, I don't know about the minority, but it would definitely increase in its share. Currently, the South African market consumes about 30 million servings of non-alcoholic beer and cider products. So that is still relatively small, but it is growing.
I imagine it's growing quite strongly in a way, and we'll start to see various changes. I mean, during certain sporting events, for example, I'm sure that a lot of people consume your product and they start to consume it in different ways. Sporting events can sometimes drive consumption one way or another. They can also be a moment for a big marketing campaign to try and change behavior.
Yes, I mean, we have a very long and proud history in sport. We actually recently celebrated 4 decades of partnership with the South African Rugby Union. And we have similar partnerships with cricket and football in South Africa. So it is something that we're very proud of. And yes, it also offers great opportunity for these products. I mean, at the recent SA T20, we had Carson Light as the sponsor of that tournament. So yes, sport is a wonderful platform where people come together and cheer for their teams and enjoy our products.
Vaughan Grootes, thank you, Vice President for Marketing at South African Breweries, 27 minutes after 8.
This is SAFM Sport with Zai Khan.
Zai, good morning. The Proteas and Nepal.
Yes, it's time for them to let the bats do the talking, with coach Rob Walter saying he's got faith in the boys and he's not betting on, Nepal beating them. Now, they are in the West Indies, the Proteas, for their Group C game. While they've already booked their place in the Super 8s, they will be targeting consistency heading into this round, with the Nassau County International Cricket Stadium having some major criticisms for its unfavourable condition for batters. Coach Walter insists there is no confidence crisis amongst his charges as the World Cup approaches the Super 8 stage.
We'll not make too many changes unless the conditions tell us to do that. Obviously, it was a tough sort of outing in New York for the top order, so certainly I don't want to change there. Want to allow guys to hopefully play on a better surface.
Moving to Proteas, women captain Laura Wolfart confident that they will succeed in their India tour. The Proteas will face India in a 3-match ODI that will start with a 50-over warm-up today, with the first ODI kicking off on Sunday, the 16th of June, and then it will be followed up by a once-off test from the 29th of June to the 1st of July. And then the end of tour with a 3-match T20 series from the 5th to the 9th of July. Laura Wolfart says they've had enough time to regroup after the Sri Lanka series.
Definitely very confident. I think obviously we had a successful tour the last time we were here, and we've had a good couple of weeks of prep. Had some time at home to sort of regroup after the Sri Lanka series. I feel like we've had some good preparation leading into this series. So looking forward to the warm-up game tomorrow, and hopefully it goes well.
Soccer news, and the French midfielder Tanguy Ndombele will leave Tottenham after mutual termination of his contract. Ndombele joined Spurs on a 6-year deal from Liga side Lyon. He scored the first of his 10 goals in 9 appearances for the club on debut, and that was against Aston Villa. The 27-year-old became a league winner in Italy and Turkey after playing on loan for Napoli in the 2022-23 campaign before moving to Galatasaray last season. Meanwhile, Thiago Motta was announced as Juventus' new coach, replacing the fired Massimiliano Allegri. Juventus says Motta has signed a 3-year contract, having just steered Bologna to a Champions League finish. And in swimming, Ariane Titmus set a new world record in the women's 200-meter freestyle, and that was at the Australia Olympic Swimming Trials. Titmus, the Olympic champion in the 200 and 400-meter freestyle events, now holds the world records in both events.
I think the reason why we're so dominant as a country in women's freestyle from the 50 all the way up through to the distance events is because you can never rest on your laurels. You really have to be at your best at every major competition to make the Olympic team. People missed out on that 200 final tonight. They were on podiums from previous Olympic teams just because it's so hard to get through to the final 8. So the fact that we all train together as well and we push each other every day plays a big part as well.
That's a wrap of your sport on Sunrise. We'll bring you more on SFM around 12:30. I'm Zai Khan.
Zai, thanks very much indeed. Our ports and harbours, why are they so bad? That's next. You're with SFM leading the conversation, 8:30.
Good morning. In the headlines, police have retrieved the 11th body following torrential rains that caused devastating floods in the Nelson Mandela Bay Metro in the Eastern Cape. Action SA in KwaZulu-Natal says the removal of the eThekwini Mayor Mxolisi Kahunda is not surprising. Tomorrow is Kahunda's last day in office as the eThekwini Mayor. And the IFP President Velinkosini Hlabisa confirmed his party's support for the ANC's proposal. I'll have details on these and other stories at 9.
SAFM. Guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Well, a very heavy backlog just Thursday morning around the country. The biggest is Joburg's N3 South. Now, you want to change any plans that you may have to get onto the N3 South from Buccleuch because you're going to struggle to get there and then struggle down past the collision scene. N3 South at London Road is the crash scene. Lane closures there for recovery, pushing traffic deep across all lanes, right back into Buccleuch. Behind that, the N1 North queues from Rivonia Road up to Buccleuch, and behind that, the N1 South coming from Midrand is under pressure from sort of Samrand territory all the way down to Buccleuch for connections to the N3 as well. So major delays. Avoid any plans to travel the N3 South. If you want to get down to Edenvale, Galulis, down through Germiston, Bedford, maybe out to Durban side of Heidelberg, just to get onto some alternative routes. One of those would be the Mike one from Buccleuch and then straight down out the M2 and join the N3 at Heldenace. The other big queue is into Pretoria this morning. Top end of the Ben Schoeman Highway should be avoided. Major backlogging alert there. Durban's M7 leaving the Bluff area, going up the hill towards Queensborough. Very slow queues up towards the Belleville Road exit. And Cape Town, a lot of pressure around Mitchell's Plain. Roadworks on AZ Berman causing delays in and out to and from the R300. Highlands Drive is heavily backed up because of the congestion on AZ Berman, and even the R300 coming from the N2 down to the Stock Road exit to turn south into AZ Berman is really under some pressure as well. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
Mediated conversation on SAFM.
28 minutes now to 9 the time. Time for your mediated conversation this Thursday morning. Last week, the Container Port Performance Index was published. It shows that 4 of our ports are now ranked as among the worst in the world, and I presume among the slowest in the world. Right at the bottom is the Port of Cape Town at position 405, Ngqura at 404, Durban 398, Gqeberha at 391. The best ports in the world were in Asia. There, the Yangshan port in China was rated as the world's best port. It comes, of course, after a long period in which our harbours have had major problems. At the moment, our harbours are managed generally by Transnet. There are also plans to use a private operator to manage Pier 2 in Durban, which is the busiest part of the biggest port in our country. So then, why are our ports so bad, and can we expect them to improve? We did invite Transnet to join our conversation. They say they did not have someone available for us this morning. First, Professor Jan Havenga is an emeritus professor at industrial engineering at the University of Stellenbosch and director of the GAIN Group. Then, Onati Sonti is executive chair of the Maritime Business Chamber, and Gerard de Beer is a senior consultant at AIH Econogistics. We start then with Professor Jan Havenga. Professor Havenga, good morning and thanks for your time.
Good morning. Thanks for the invite.
Firstly, the 4 ports that I mentioned that did so badly in this poll, are they all run directly by Transnet at the moment, or is it a little bit more complicated than that? Who's running them?
I think it's directly run by Transnet at the moment. And I think it is true that our ports last year probably reached the lowest point ever. And it was really at a bad spot last year. It has improved since, number one. Number two, it is improved because of new management that's been appointed. That's doing really well. Number three, the report is wrong. I've got no other way of saying it. It is just wrong. We look at the methodology. We talk to people all around the world. We need to accept the fact that our ports is not in good shape. We need to accept the fact and support the current management that is trying to improve it. And they're doing good work there with good assistance from the National Logistics Crisis Committee. But there's still a long way to go in terms of government investment, in terms of remembering that to get new equipment and things like that, the lead times are sometimes long. But yes, the report itself, many scholars around the world, many scientists around the world question the validity, the methodology used, and there's lots of questions about that specific report. Although we accept the fact that we need to improve, and we are busy improving.
Okay. I would presume that the major sort of metric, the major way in which this is tested is time. In other words, how long do you have to wait between when you arrive at the port and when you leave the port? Would that be correct? Time's probably the major factor?
Time is an important part of this measurement. That is true. But there's many other things that also play a role. Ships do not only arrive to discharge and leave. So you have to ask specific shipping lines about what it is that actually drive their decision, how to use a port, when to use a port, when to bypass a port, and so on. What I can say is that over the last few months, since October, the vessels at anchorage, for me, it's an important measurement. So how many ships were waiting to get into the port because the port was busy and it can't enter is actually reduced quite a bit. It's much less now than it was then. Secondly, and I would like to hear what other people on the conversation are saying, people have been telling me, but it could be because less vessels is calling. So I tried to get the data for that, and it looks like there was a slight dip in January and February, but I think the vessels calling at the moment is not much different than it was last year this time. So I don't think it's because less vessels is calling and less vessels is waiting to enter the port, which for me shows that there might be some improvement there. It looks like it.
Okay. Is it possible to know how different the experience at our ports is compared to the ports at the top of the list? Or let's just say the best ports in the world if we don't like the list. The Yangshan port in China, perhaps, gives you a very different experience to what you're getting in Durban, I presume.
Yes, I mean, those ports are really good. There's massive investments that's gone into those ports. One must understand that. And I think the ports in China, it's really over the last 20 years has gone forward. And we cannot say the same for our ports. That is true. Over the last 20 years, there's been a massive decline because of state capture, because of poor management, because of many things like that. And even after state capture, the management we had in Transnet then had problems. I'm very happy with the current management. I think we can move forward with this. But those ports had this massive investments and a national will to make them the best in the world. That makes a difference.
So the situation, I was particularly astonished to see that Cape Town's at the bottom of this list. It's probably a headline that they weren't very happy with. Are there particular problems at that port or at the port in Gqeberha or Coega? I mean, are there particular issues that we can see that need to be fixed immediately?
The few things that was attended to immediately, and that is, there's some equipment that one can immediately replace, and that has been done, and a lot of work has been done around that. Also, there's management problems, and I think Michelle Phillips, she got involved the moment she was appointed, and I think she was permanently appointed in her position in the beginning of April, end of March. She immediately got involved, and they made some management changes there. People start to work better. The other thing that one can see is also the involvement of the National Logistics Crisis Committee. The previous management of Transnet wasn't that eager to accept help from outside. I think that you might also remember the letter that was written by the German Chamber of Commerce asking for the removal of the previous CEO of Transnet. The current management fixes things by looking at the core things that's important. Get people to work again and work according to the correct process and approach that they should work. Motivate people again, and I see that on a daily basis. People are getting more motivated, accepting help where you can. I mean, those things, and there where the most critical points of equipment problems is, and as soon as possible you can find that equipment. It gets better, but I am a little bit concerned about the long term. I think government now needs to get involved in Transnet in the sense of we need to start looking at the restructuring of Transnet, and we need to start looking at where investment is required, because some of the long-term things, you can work better, but you need better things to work with. And that's where we're stuck at the moment.
There's obviously a big issue around the P word, privatisation. Currently, Pier 2 in Durban is going to be run by a private company. I think there's unfortunately a dispute about which private company it will be. Do you believe that private operators running these ports or part of them will make a difference? I mean, there'll be some who, when they're confronted with a poll like this, even if it's wrong, might just say, well, let's just privatise them or let's bring in private operators. I mean, would that make a difference? Or, I mean, that would be opposed by unions, of course. Do you think that the privatisation automatically makes a difference?
I think it will make a huge difference. Transnet in its current form, and I was part of a team, very small role I played in the 80s to create Transnet in its current form, is not a viable business. You can't have a port authority, port terminals, a railway, the operations of the railway and the track, everything together with pipelines thrown in the same business. And when we created Transnet, SA was part of it. So it needs, the portions that needs to be in private hands should be in private hands. And the standard model around the world is for a port like this, the port authority side to belong to either the government, but preferably maybe even the city or the province, and then terminals to be privately operated. Much more effective and efficient, and I think that's the right way to do it. Yes, I think I can understand what unions might say about it. I think the job losses because of problems we have in our economy, because of Transnet at the moment, far outweighs any form of rationalization that might cause a few people to lose their job versus the many thousands of people that's currently losing their jobs on a monthly basis because of Transnet not performing at peak.
Thank you very much indeed, Professor Jan Havengaas, an Emeritus Professor of Industrial Engineering at the University of Stellenbosch and Director of the GAIN Group. You with SFM. Your mediated conversation continues this morning about our ports after that poll that was released showing them doing very badly. Unati Sonti is the Executive Chair of the Maritime Business Chamber. Unati, good morning.
Good morning, SG, and all your listeners. Hope everyone is having a blessed day today.
When your members use our ports, what kind of experience are they actually having? I mean, it's the shippers, it's the people who are forwarding freight, it's the people who are waiting for cargo. What kind of experience are they having?
SG, the chamber represents quite a diverse, a large number of port users. In South Africa. Some are new entrances and some are already established, and some are just, foreign going vessels that just come in and get whatever that they need.
So, I mean, are you finding then that for some people it's quite a frustrating experience? Things are not moving very quickly.
Look, as the professor said, yes, there are some areas where we would say some things, still needs to be addressed, and there are some areas that we still need to be engaging more on. But as like the professor and everyone else in this country, with regards to the report itself that has placed all our ports, at the bottom of the list, it's one of those that we are questioning. We're questioning the methodology that has been used. As much as we've got challenges that we have seen, one, the PCCs, the National Crisis Committee as well coming in, the turnaround strategies, the recovery plans, being put in place to address, some of these things. We believe as much as there are challenges, but where we are being placed right now, it does not really put or paint a good picture for the country. Because remember, our terminals, all the operators, they continue to market, South Africa as a destination.
So, I mean, I would imagine that delays cost your members a fortune one way or another. It's time and money that is basically wasted. Have you seen an improvement? Professor Havengaas suggests there has been an improvement. Are you seeing an improvement?
Yes. We do. We have seen an improvement. And in fact, that has been confirmed by some of our members, especially the agents as well, whom are the layers in between, the ship owners or the cargo owners that are coming inside the port. There are improvements in those areas, even though there are still some other challenges that we believe, look, in terms of, turnaround time in repairing some of the equipment, there's still a challenge in some of the ports. In terms of, in fact, I want to also just touch on anchorage. Vessels waiting at anchorage. There is, some turnaround time in that. And I do not want us as well to use that as a measure to say there is port congestion or there is some delays, because we do not know what are the reasons why some of these ships are still at anchorage. Some may be waiting for cargo. Some do not know where they need to go, next from here. So I don't want to really put that as a measure.
Okay. I know when Durban had really big problems last year, some shipping companies were talking about just avoiding South Africa. Is that still happening, or do you find that everyone, is happy to come here and happy to use our ports?
It's a difficult one to say. It's a difficult one to say. Yes, there are still some of those that are still avoiding some of our ports, and you would understand the pressure, with the Red Sea. So that brings more pressure. So you remember, a vessel coming in, it's something that was planned probably 30 days ago. So at least those would have already known what is the status and whether they would really, be getting all the help that they would be requiring in the country in terms of getting, a bed space and also being assisted in terms of what they require. So there are still some of those that are still avoiding, but we have seen, at least in terms of the number of ships that have visited our ports, we haven't seen that much of a decline if we compare to the numbers of last year.
Okay. Transnet, as we hear, is trying to make major changes. Are you seeing evidence of those real changes? I mean, do you see a real commitment to fix the problems that we've had? Are your members feeling that change?
It varies. It varies. Like you look yesterday, we've seen they've delivered, I think 3 or 4 of those tags that they had ordered, which have come in. I think yesterday they confirmed that there was a statement around that. We are seeing some strategies, being implemented in this place, but we still have, majority of the members that I represent, some of them are small businesses. In terms of being able to participate fully, within the system, that's still a problem. I think how the port system was set up, it had never, really put into consideration that there would be a time where there would be a vibrant, small business community that would be wanting to participate in their local, in their local ports. So in that regard, yes, we're still finding, some challenges in that. But in terms of them implementing some of these, because we have had now the port performance roadshows recently in the past month, where we have had and we have seen how they've responded into some of these things. South Africa, normally what we see outside of the administration and outside of the non-berth availability spaces within the ports, there's also the issues of weather that affects. But in terms of what is going on inside, there are some areas where there's improvement, but there are some areas where we are still finding it difficult to understand what is really going on with regards to but our call is clear to say at least there must be space for small businesses to be able to participate, and also how they turn around in terms of some of the administrative things that they do inside, in terms of licensing and making sure that, those processes, they are much quicker. There, we are still finding some challenges.
Do you expect some problems then to remain for quite some time? Are you a bit worried that some of these problems over the longer term may still be with us? In other words, yes, there are changes now, but actually some of the long-term problems might remain.
I think this report, one, was a good wake-up call for the country, and it has now brought us all together. I think we are all now speaking in one voice because we all have, the similar interest in terms of positioning our ports and this country at large. So some of those challenges, I think we would be able now to address them. And we believe also with the 7th administration, putting a pressure in terms of the government also looking into maybe, the establishment of a maritime shipping and affairs ministry would be something that would put all these things now into a better perspective so that they are run better. We cannot remember 90% or 85 to 90% of our trade in this country is by sea because we are not producers, so we really need to make sure that our ports work. So we believe with all the efforts that have been put in place, the National Logistics Crisis Committee that was put in place, we think it would do something, but we want to make sure that also, the national ports consultative committees and the port consultative committees, they are given more power together with the port regulator so that we address these things. So we are hopeful that things would begin to change if we all come together and speak in one voice.
Thank you very much indeed. Onati Sonti is the Executive Chair of the Maritime Business Chamber. In a moment, we'll hear from Gerard de Beer from AIH Econogistics. You're this FM, 10 minutes to 9.
SAFM. Guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Well, still very heavy on Joburg's N3 running south. This is the big crash scene this morning down by the London Road area at Alex. Just around that London Road exit is where the crash is. Multiple lanes are closed and traffic is extremely heavily backed up. So anyone with any plans to get sort of through Buccleuch and onto the N3 down to Galulis or down to Germiston, down to Heidelberg, Durban, down to the airport really should avoid staying with that plan and take some alternative routes. It's a significant backlog. It's all the way from London Road up to Buccleuch, thick and heavy across all lanes, through Buccleuch down to Rivonia Road on the M1 North and back up to about sort of New Road territory on the N1 South. That's how bad the approaching highways is. Gives you an idea of how little movement there is from that Buccleuch interchange down to London Road. Northbound remains busy with the onlooking factor going on, so and delays from Edenvale up to Alex as well. The N1 North to William Mandela, that's still quite slow. The N14 driving into Pretoria, another one to avoid. That's the top end of the Ben Schoeman. Big queues as you approach the city centre area. We've been keeping an eye on Durban's N2 North through towards Mhlanga. It has eased. It was really busy yesterday. It was really dreadful earlier this morning, but it's okay. If you're making your way out from Genna Road on your way to the airport, it's a clear run through at this stage. And Cape Town, Mitchell's Plain is where the really big backlog is this morning. This has been building as roadworks have been intensifying on AZ Berman between the R300 and Highlands Drive. So in and out of Mitchell's Plain on that route's heavy. R300 coming from the N2. It's just a long queue of traffic and a big wait to get off at AZ Berman. So if you're going in and out of Mitchell's Plain, pick some alternative routes and stay off that area. Also, just a note, the N1 into town's very busy over the elevated freeway. There are some road closures and traffic restrictions already in place around the CTICC, and that's for tomorrow's first sitting of the new National Parliament. It will be particularly busy around routes like Kieran Tract and Walter Sisulu, Lower Long over the next couple of days. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
Now you can get private banking levels of service from Auto & General. They've just launched their private advisory service, and if you have more than a car to insure and your combined cover is valued at more than 1 million rand, you qualify. To celebrate, they're giving you the chance to win in the Auto & General Combine and Qualify competition. Visit safm.co.za, complete the entry form, and we could be calling you live on air. You'll be presented with various scenarios of insurable items. If you combine the correct two that meet the qualifying criteria for a private advisor, you'll win 5,000 Rand. Plus, if you get an obligation-free insurance quote from Auto & General, you'll get an extra 1,000 Rand. Visit safm.co.za and enter now. Auto & General is a licensed non-life insurer and FSP. T's and C's online.
Mediated conversation on SAFM.
Continuing your mediated conversation this morning around our ports after that index that came out last week suggesting our ports were among the worst in the world. Some questions already for how that index was actually compiled. 7 minutes now to 9. Gerard de Beer is a senior consultant at AIH Econogistics. Gerard, good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for the opportunity to be on the show.
If we look at how slow our ports are, what do you believe needs to be done first to improve them, to speed them up? What changes need to be made right now?
Yeah, if I can refer to three ports, what has been done and can be done. I think Jan and the previous speaker mentioned to some of the stuff. We sit with a lot of equipment which reached the end of the life cycle. And you need to replace that equipment. At this stage, the Port of Cape Town, I think of the 21 or 27 rubber tire gantry cranes, there was 4 which was full-time and operational, and a number of them was partially operational. And the second thing what you need to do is to put some anti-sway equipment in the port of Cape Town to deal with this strong winds. And I think there we need immediately some intervention from the private sector to get those cranes out to South Africa as soon as possible. I think some of the shipping liners have already looked at that. And I think we must almost remember that Cape Town is at the pivot point between the east and the west. And for the shipping lines, it is very important to get access to the port. At the stage, there was 20 vessels lying outside of the Cape Town, and that have big delays in the system. So that is immediately, and I think we need to work on skills. There was a lack of skills in the port. It was a lot of young people in the port itself, and there's also human behavior stuff what we need to address. So that is the two key things what needs to address in a very short space of time. Then your operating system will start to increase. I think what makes it very difficult is to compare it with Shanghai, which is fully optimized. That's got cloud-based systems. We're not close to those kind of operations, and we sit with the union factor in South Africa. So in a nutshell, that is that I can assure you, if you address that, you will see a major improvement in the port of Cape Town. If I can just quickly allude to Richards Bay with the coal, you know about the story of that. One of the main conveyor systems was out of service for almost 18 months. And the moment when they fixed it and they've introduced the inland terminal, they took about 400 trucks out of the system. In the past, there was about 10 kilometers long the queue to the port. So effectively, you can do things in the port, but you can also do things outside the port to relieve the pressure on the port itself.
So there are other things that are very interesting around this. I mean, I presume that there are other countries that have had their ports in a very bad way and they've been able to improve them. There must be other examples of places that were doing very badly and are better now, and those are places we can follow.
Yes, I think a very good example is maybe what happened at the corner of East Africa and Western and Central Africa. All those ports is currently privately operated. There's private operators, and you can immediately, if you look at the statistics, see the improvement what happened in those, and that all those ports sitting on a main shipping line or shipping route. So I'm very positive, and I'm looking forward that we can start look at different models of privatization in the port environment. But supporting to that, you must also look at the rail side. You need a system which can support the port, which is also privately operated, can be the same operator, and they can apply the same models to measure the efficiencies of that system. And the benefit of proper systems, you can adjust or make decisions along the route.
The other thing, of course, is do you think all the changes that need to be made can actually be made? Do you believe that they can be made in the way that you think they need to? And some of them are political changes, which is quite difficult.
Yeah, I think there's lower-hanging fruit what you can address specifically in operating performance in the ports, and you can force that down. I think very important thing what Michelle Phillips have started to do is to talk to the people on the ground, and then you will see you slowly increase the performance of the cranes in the terminals itself, and maybe even the cranes to the vessel. So that is on a short term what you can do. Then I think the moment we start looking to a medium term is the privatization for what systems do we need. Obviously the ship alliance want to have access of a container from point A to point B, and that is what they after, and that's why they're so efficient. If I can just mention quickly, if you look what can happen with the delays that we have, you have a build-up of empty containers in a port. And that is the last thing what you need is build-up empty containers in a port or around the port area. And that have a direct impact on the flow of containers. A reefer container is a very expensive commodity. The second thing, a lot of the traffic in Cape Town is seasonal traffic. Is maybe let's look at a much earlier stage to plan that empty containers, or can we do something in the supply chain to make sure that we don't stock the grapes at the cold storage facility, maybe much closer to the port. That is immediate things what can happen in the short term, and that will relieve even the pressure on the port itself.
Thank you very much indeed. Gerard de Beers, a senior consultant at AIH Econogistics. My thanks also today to Unathi Sonti, the executive chair of the Maritime Business Chamber, and starting us off today, Professor Jan Havenga, emeritus professor of industrial engineering at the University of Stellenbosch and director of the Gain Group. Well, a lot's going to happen over the next 24 hours. I'm hoping that by the time I sit down here and start to talk to you tomorrow morning at 6 o'clock, we'll have a very clear picture of what's going to happen. I think there will be some clarity coming into the system. And of course, tomorrow is a big day. The National Assembly, many of the provinces meeting as well. From Mdu, Melissa, Stanza, and Paul, myself, look after yourself. You're with SFM leading the conversation. Coalition Country, it's 9 o'clock.
In our top stories, another body found following Eastern Cape floods, and Parys residents call for a permanent solution to water challenges. Good morning. Police have retrieved the 11th body following torrential rains that caused devastating floods in the Nelson Mandela Bay Metro in the Eastern Cape. The body was found in the Swartkops River next to Melbrooks Avenue in Kariga. Police are appealing to anyone who could assist with the identification of the victim to come forward.